All right, all of you freedom loving men and women, boys and girls, welcome to Mission Critical Podcast. This is episode 47, kind of part two of our Freedom or Liberty Week. This is our live stream. And if you are watching or listening to this podcast, you are the resistance. Plain and simple. And it's becoming apparent and evident with each passing day. You are the resistance. We are your hosts. We've got a special guest, and we might get Better Call Paul here tonight, too. We had another guest, Redbeard. Well, here, we're your guests. I'm Mark. Over there. Well, God, he's in the wrong spot. You're in a different spot tonight.
I know Blackbeard
pointing
did it.
This way. Now I got to point this way.
Blackbeard did it when he popped on earlier. He just added everybody.
All right, we'll come back to that in a second. Let's introduce Evan, our special guest here for tonight. Evan was on Tuesday's podcast, but before we go into the podcast, Evan, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Why not just do one more little reminder, a little selfish plug for your business?
Yeah, no, I'm the owner and like sole proprietor, one-man show at Simbita Custom Knives. I make custom knives for pretty much any walk of life, everything from the kitchen to, the charter boats, fillet knives. I do tactical stuff, self-defense stuff, everyday carry. My main bread and butter is the backcountry hunter, guys that do backpack hunting, mountain sheep and elk and, stuff like that. But pretty much anybody in the outdoor industry and in the culinary industry, I make knives for, or I make knives targeted to, and I've got knives all over the world. So if you want me to make you something cool, reach out for the show and I'd love to make something cool for you.
Hey, and I was trying to, in my proverbial, trying to get 10 pounds into my 5-pound bag today to get in before the live stream. I did get a chance to see, and I don't know, and honestly, I'm not going to lie, I don't know if it was a post you did today or something that you did recently. And we'll bring up social media here in our conversation tonight, boys and girls. But Evan, I saw a picture and it looked like you had some micarta handles. I think they're micarta, but you had some orange mixed in with that. Is that a new what is that all about? That looked really badass.
So that's a combo I could do on any knife, but I do a limited edition knife for the Backcountry Hunting podcast, usually twice a year. That specific model is only available through that limited run. And it's sort of me and Joseph Von Benedict scratching each other's backs. It gets a lot of people like a reason to listen to his podcast, because if you want to get one, you got to listen in for the notification. He helped me design the knife. We both kind of put our heads together and design that knife. And, but it's sort of a unique model. I've got models that are similar, but to get that one, you've got to get one through a limited run. And each time I do a run, it's the same knife, but I do it in sometimes a different blade steel, but usually different Kydex. I do it in a specific handle combo unique to that run, and they're all serialized. But that specific run, the run I'm doing right now, is Jade Ghost G10 with orange glow liners underneath, which makes the whole thing look kind of like a straw color. And then it's got black subliners that are 15 thousandths thick. They're really thin. And then it's got carbon fiber pins, and the whole thing glows like uranium in the dark. It's really neat.
So is that how it is? So that's just actually a filler or a liner that's kind of coming in with the rest of that handle, the rest of that. Is the majority of the handle? What is that? Is that micarta or what is that?
It's Jade Ghost G10.
Okay. It looks badass, sir. I'm high-fiving you on that. Yeah, it looked really badass. Hey, okay, on that note, as we kind of get into it, taking a breath, it's really been a long day. So, before we kick this off, here's to you guys, Evan especially, thank you, because this clown over here doesn't drink, so, but here's to you.
Yeah. Somebody's got to be sober here.
He's pretty proud of that beard, but he doesn't let any ale or mead wash over it ever. So,
Yeah, it dries out the beard. You got to, hydrate the beard, with beer or bourbon. Seriously. Especially. That's like the original beard oil.
A mead balm for your beard.
Ooh,
yeah. That could be kind of good.
They do make a bourbon balm, so.
Do they make a bourbon balm?
They do.
Balm, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so here we are. We're going to jump into this live stream. And again, Evan, thanks you very much for coming in on Tuesday. That was awesome. Tons of fun.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think before we get into the meat of this, because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to liberty and what we're talking. And And see, I don't even want to go into it right now because I'm going to start this off in a couple minutes. Redbeard knows what I'm talking about. Just all the different articles I had prepped already for tonight, and it's just absolutely just mind boggling and scary on so many levels. Evan, before we do that, why don't we just take it down a notch before we get everything ramped up a little too much? You never had a chance to tell the story when I last spoke to you prior to Tuesday's podcast of what you kind of talked about a little bit, but you want to tell everybody just a little bit more, because this is Liberty, right? This is what it's all about, right? The story you're about to tell, I think, encapsulates what Liberty and what our forefathers definitely would have espoused. Like, I think they would all be ashamed of us because everybody's eating from a grocery store, like, and you don't even know where your meat comes, like, so that's just me though. You know the story I'm telling about. You want to kind of share some of your rub it into everybody's face on a Friday night, some of the badassery that you just have been privy to.
Yeah, well, like I'll start off I've always thought it'd be cool to hunt wild boar with a knife. I saw when I was a kid, I was watching the show Lost, and everybody remembers Lost because you got lost just watching the show. And there was this dude who, is a mysterious figure after the plane crashes. He seems to know everything about survival, and he has this suitcase full of knives, which was super fake because who has a suitcase full of random knives? They're all super cheap knives too. But he grabs a belt knife and he goes off into the jungle. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do for food. And at the end of the episode, he comes back with a wild boar strung over his shoulders, and he feeds all the survivor party, and everybody's like, "Holy cow, that guy's cool!" And I always thought, man, that would be so cool to hunt wild boar with a knife. Generally, people don't do that without using dogs. They don't jump on a pig's back and stick it with a knife. I mean, you can, but I mean, you're more likely to get disemboweled doing that. So most guys that do that, and a lot of people do hunt pigs with a knife, they use hounds. And but I thought, I'm a knife maker. I'm a full-time career knife maker at this point. It's time to capitalize on that and fulfill like a childhood dream, right? So I designed a knife specifically for hunting boar. And everything about this knife was designed for sticking pigs. And I can go through that if you guys want to know, like, all the features and stuff. But like, that's
Hey,
what
actually, yeah. Hey, do me a favor. Do that again. Here, I'll bring it up this year. Do that again. Get your hand behind it. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, give us a little, because it's blending in the background. That's looking pretty wicked. Look at that.
Yeah. So it's sharpened on the top and the bottom. It's intentionally not sharpened right here, and the choil right there. That's intentional. It's got a really, really beefy guard on purpose, and the idea is, you treat it like a broadhead. So it's not like you're prison shanking a pig. You're not slitting its throat. That doesn't work. I mean, you can kill something that way, but it's not humane. And hair is really hard on a knife's edge. And we always think of pigs as being like Wilbur, and it's pink and has no hair. That's not how it works in the real world. These pigs are completely covered in hair, and their hair is like as thick as like the stuff you use on the brush you use for cleaning your barbecue grill. It's really coarse, just murders knife edges. I don't care what kind of knife you have. And cutting the jugular is not very efficient. So what you want to do is you want to go in just like you would an archery shot or rifle shot, and you want to cut the heart and lungs. And so the idea is that you make your cut by plunging in right behind the shoulder through the heart and lungs, and it bottoms out in that guard. The non-sharpened portion acts as a pivot against the hide, and you can work it like a pump handle, and it cuts everything like a shear. And then when you pull out, you cut downward, and you cut the rib cage in half. And it's extremely efficient. It's extremely humane. It's much faster than an archery shot, for example. My first pig I took that way was faster than a rifle shot. It was incredibly fast with how quickly the animal's down. And as a benefit, like no blood in the meat. It completely bled out right there, like 2 seconds. And but that's the knife, and that's how it's designed to work. I've gone a couple times now. I'm actually going here in a few more months to go again, but I say probably the best story. Actually, I've got the skull right here. I only keep the skulls from the cool ones that have cool stories, but she was a big old sow, big cutters. Sows don't get cutters like that normally unless they get really old. But we were running hounds, basically a lot of driving around with hounds in a specially made, enclosure in the back of a truck. And you drive through wheat fields and through cattle pasture and stuff in Texas, and you're looking with thermals out the windows, just looking for pigs, because you'll see sounders of pigs. A sounder is a herd of pigs. You'll see a sounder of pigs, And then once you see a sounder of pigs in a place that you think the dogs can get to them before they take off, uh, we stop, and the houndsman reaches out the door, past the side of the truck. The dogs know to go. They take off, and we watch through the thermals and listen, just to see if they connect. And what they do is they're called bay dogs. Their job is to run out and pull one of the pigs off from its herd, and then corner it basically in brush or surround it, and they basically bay it. Usually there's two of them. They can't really surround a pig, but they get to the point where the pig turns around and just like, I'm standing my ground and not going anywhere. And the dogs, when they get the pig bayed, they sound off. They have a specific type of bark to say that they bayed. And we go running in with a pit bull, known as a catch dog. It's trained specifically for this, and it wears a Kevlar vest to protect its vitals. And as soon as you turn the pit bull loose, it runs in without hesitation and hits the pig. Its only job is to grab the pig's ear and keep its attention, so that way you can get in and kill the pig. And if you are quick enough, a lot of people would say, it doesn't seem very fair. If you're not quick enough, the dogs lose. Hasn't happened while I'm hunting, hasn't happened in a long time for my houndsman, but it does happen. Even 3 dogs against 1 pig without a hunter, those pigs are going to win. They're really, really tough pigs, have a super low center of gravity, and they're insanely strong. So, but anyway, so that's how it works. And we've been cruising around. It'd been a really tough night. We'd gone several hours not even seeing any pigs, which isn't normal for that part of Texas. And we were driving through what they call pasture land. And pasture land isn't like what we think of pasture land up here in Ohio anyway, as like, a spot that's all clear to trees. It's super green and we have horses on it. And it looks like a Hallmark card. That's not pasture land in Texas. There, it's just stuff that wasn't cleaned to use for fields for like wheat. So there's tons of scrub, brush, cactus. You can't see 20 feet because of all the mesquite trees and stuff. And as we're driving, a pig pops out of the brush and runs across the, I'd say road, but it's like a 4-wheel drive, path for vehicles through the middle of this pasture land. And so we stopped, turn the hounds loose, and the houndsman looks at me and goes, "That was a boar. That wasn't a sow. That was a boar. It was way too big to be a sow." And the dogs run, and we hear them stop, and we hear them bay, and then they start moving again, and then they bay, and then they start moving again. And so we're like, crap. So we're running to try to keep up, and we hit barbed wire fencing because they paddock everything off so they don't overgraze one spot. So we're going through the barbed wire fencing to the next paddock, and as soon as we get through the barbed wire fencing, it's cactus as far as you can see, and it's not cactus like the saguaro cactus that's shaped like a man. It's prickly pear. The pads are like this big, and it's as thick as grass on the ground. And the spines are like steel. Like you can step on, they'll go right through your boot. And they're just as thick as grass. Like we're walking, trying to find little spots to put our feet. And the pig and the dogs are way ahead of us. And every time they bay, we're like, yeah. And then they keep moving again. We get to the other side of that paddock, and they're still like 400 yards away. So we go underneath that. It opens up a little more, and then there's more cactus. We finally get through it all. And there's the pig, and instead of being bayed, like normally they back up into the brush, and they just stand there and they turn back and forth, basically keeping the dangerous endpoint towards the dogs. This one was lunging at the dogs, and basically the dogs were keeping it busy, not by being aggressive, but just trying not to get bitten. And this thing was super aggressive, super angry, and the houndsmen, they're used to seeing pigs all the time. These guys both kill and catch hundreds of pigs a year. That's like what they do. And they both said, "That's a nice boar." So we get in there, and we turn the catch dog loose. I get in there, give it a good stick, and it turns around and stops and pants, and it looks at me, and I realize that thing should have blacked out by now. It's about a good 3 seconds, maybe 2 seconds. And turns out I stuck it a little bit far back. It turns and charges at me. And I jumped, and it missed me by about that much, missed my right kneecap. And stops, and it goes to turn around, and I got in there and finished off. It was no big deal. It was really quick. At the time, it felt like
Hey, Jeremy, there was no big deal.
minutes. It
No
felt
big
like
deal.
minutes. It was like seconds, because I've got a buddy that videotaped it. It felt like seconds, or it was seconds. It felt like minutes. And so it's down, and we flip it over to get a good picture of it, and the houndsman goes, "Oh my gosh, that's a sow." And the other guy's like, "What? That's way too big." And it was a sow. And so anyway, we had gone like half a mile, like full sprint through cactus and everything to get to this thing, which is not normal. It's usually like 200 yards from where you turn the dogs loose. And and it took us forever to drag the thing back because she weighed like 220, 230 pounds. And but anyway, I
Wow.
took it home, butchered it up. And for those that don't know, anybody that reads hunting magazines thinks that all wild boar are like 400-pound monsters, and that is just not how it works. If you get a 250-pound pig, that's a really big pig. Most of Texas, unless they've been like in high fence and feeding on feeders, a 200-pound pig is really respectable. It's kind of like the benchmark. So I took it back, and because it had a good story, because like I earned it, and because that pig almost got my kneecap, I was like, I got to save the skull. This is going to be cool. So I took the head, I butchered it up, put everything on ice, kept the head, went home and cleaned it. And whenever I simmered the skull clean, get the skull back. I don't know how much the camera will show, but the gums were receded so far back that the roots were exposed. That's not normal. The bone was receded, and the molars were worn to the point where they look like those little tables that they use to hold up pizza boxes. She was almost completely worn through just from old age. They don't grow new teeth. The only teeth that grow are their canines, their cutters. The rest of them are like our teeth. So, you can outlive those teeth. And she actually had, her gums were so receded, again, super old age, that she had grass and stuff inside the roots of her teeth, like in the arches of the roots of her teeth. And so it was no wonder she was super mean and super aggressive. She was not feeling great. She was a really old pig, and she didn't have another season left in her. She would have outlived her teeth, and she would have gone. So it's actually really cool to take that pig because it was her time to be pulled from the herd anyway.
Hey, so that is an awesome friggin' story. And I'm going to start at the end and go to the beginning on that for what it's worth. And I've got a story, but mine is really nothing compared to yours. Matter of fact, you're going to laugh at mine because I'm going to sound like a little like, type of thing. But for anyone, again, whether there's anyone watching tonight or anyone watches this later on demand, like what Evan just talked about is, you can sit and badmouth hunting all you want. And there are bad hunters out there, just like there's bad people in any other environment or any activity or sport or whatever the case is. But, the one thing that I've always found for the majority of my life is that most people who are hunters really are conservatives, right? And by conservative, they're conservationists. And unlike I'm picking on it. I'm picking on one side of the political spectrum here, and I acknowledge that. I hope I'm wrong, but my general observation is these people have no idea how nature works and how to so Redbeard, you know what I'm talking about, the original bunker. Yep. I knew exactly what I should and should not harvest on my 40 acres, right? I didn't need the DNR to tell me I should, no, you're absolutely wrong. I need to take more bucks this year or more does. And then Evan, to your point right there, that's just another thing. And I'm not trying to I don't want this to sound like we're making excuses. It has to do with so again, in your situation, you kind of didn't know. It was like the dogs, got this one out of the herd. But to that point, when you're talking about the teeth, this is where I'm trying to get at. Like when an animal that's a herbivore gets to that certain point, well, that animal is going to be in pain and suffering. It's going to be a danger to other animals, to you, the hunter. But that is the animal that needs to be culled out of the herd, because you just even said it. And once you showed me those teeth and you started talking about that, I didn't know I was going to be in agreement with you, but I was like, yeah, that animal had maybe one more season, because once they can't process that and it becomes such of a pain, well, then what happens, right? And where is that animal going to go, right? And how is that going to work out in the grander scheme of things? So that's one point. Evan, I don't know if you got a counterpoint or anything to add to that. Otherwise, I'm going to move into my next point.
Well, I think the only point I was going to add to the knife thing is, if anybody's listening and they're like, that seems kind of gruesome, or it seems kind of excessive to use a knife, I disagree with them. But it's interesting to me because I know people who, if I rifle hunt, and rifle is the most ethical way to take an animal, in my opinion. Like, there is no more ethical way than a high power rifle.
Time out. Only if you're skilled.
Well, if you're skilled.
Yep.
If you're skilled. But if you were to theoretically, not that I ever condone this, if you were to tie two animals up and walk up and put an arrow through their lungs and put a 30-06 bullet through their lungs. I think the 30-06 is more ethical personally because of the shock. It's faster, and there's less skill required at archery distance, for example. But my point is, what I'm getting at, I'm an advocate for archery hunting, knife hunting, spear hunting, rifle hunting. I'm a rifle nut. I love rifles. So I'm not picking on any one group. I'm part of all those groups. But it's interesting to me that, like, if I rifle hunt, and I've had people do this, they say, oh, yeah, but a real hunter would have used a bow. And if you use a compound, somebody says, oh, yeah, that's cool, but it was a compound. A real man would have used a recurve. And if you use a recurve, then somebody always jokingly says, yeah, but if you were a real man, you would have used a knife. You wouldn't have need to be in a tree stand or whatever.
Yep.
But if you use a knife, then people say you should have, like, that's crazy. Why didn't you use a bow? Why didn't you use a rifle? It's like there is no winning. So my takeaway, my basically what I think people should take away is, if it's ethical, do it, and don't let anybody beat you up for it, because there is always somebody that's going to say you should do it differently, no matter how you do it. I've had people say that hunting with a knife is ridiculous. If other people say, wow, you're more man than me, like, it goes both ways, and you're not going to make everybody happy. Do what you're good at. Get better at what you're good at, and be the best you can be with the thing that you have a passion for, a talent for, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to all facets, not just hunting, but, kind of keeping it in the scope of Jeremy's Liberty Week. So, what really is liberty? It's not going to the grocery store. It's not being beholden or asking somebody permission, to our friends, overseas, who may watch this, like, your hunting laws are just so crazy to me. Right. And maybe it's because you think you're managing, and maybe that's true. Right. I'm not going to sit there and pick on one country, on how they do things. I've been to a bunch of different countries. I've almost hunted in one or two of them, just the opportunity missed, but, very much aware of that world. And then I compare it to us over here in the States. And I think, Jeremy, if we're going to use hunting as a segue, Jeremy will add to this, like, hang on, why do I need your permission to do this? Again, if to your point, Evan, and this is what I would just want to conclude with, is like, whatever you're going to do, and everybody's got to start someplace, and not everybody's got all the time, and everybody, like, da-da-da. But whatever you can do, if you can humanely harvest animals and put that protein in your freezer, F to the that is just hands down the way to do it. Now, I love Evan's story. Again, you told me this a little over a week ago, not to that level of detail. You didn't tell me it almost got you. That you were busy. You were and your buddies in the truck and stuff, but that's a friggin' awesome story. And here's why I love that. And here's why I think that goes into Liberty Week. So when the very first bow I bought, I got it. This is going to sound stupid, but I actually have to be a little bit careful here because I was in a location, and I don't know if I can really say that, but I went and bought a bow because there were a lot of wild boar, just like where Evan was. And I'm like, dude, I've grown up hunting deer. I never hunted bear, but we have a lot of bear here in northern Minnesota. I would definitely hunt bear. Matter of fact, I think Redbeard, you can attest this. I wanted to hunt bear last year, but it just didn't quite work out. I had some property where I could hunt it, but they didn't want me hunting bear there. And for their own reasons. They're, my relatives, they're Native American and they're part of bear. Anyway, so blah, 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 blah. But to your point, Evan, like, so I took up bow hunting because it's an incredibly difficult skill to master, just like a handgun is. It's like, they are very difficult skills. But now what you're going to is a whole nother level. And I love it because I've seen some of these videos and guys are doing this, and this is going to be stupid, but you can see what I got here, right? So this is over 8 feet long. See, what your point was, and there's a guy in Minnesota who does this, but this is what I was thinking to your point, because, like, again, I don't know if I have the balls to get in as close as you did, with a bladed, an edge weapon like you, but this gives me a little bit of standoff. But to your point, you gotta, and I'm not criticizing you, I'm giving you props, but my God, I would have had somebody standing there with like a 10 mil, handgun or something else, because, if you miss, and even with an arrow, so bows, I took up bows. I shot bows as a kid, but I took up bow hunting because I want to harvest wild boar, like what Evan's talking about. And I'm here to tell you, Evan, you can tell me if I'm stupid. Dude, they're fucking tasty. That's some of the best. I've had it in Germany.
Unbelievable.
It's amazing meat.
It's amazing friggin' meat. So I don't know if that's the same with our wild boar here. So maybe to wrap up our little hunting conversation, but it is liberty based, right, Jeremy? I mean, I think we're still on track. But
Yeah.
Evan, is there a difference between, and I don't know this, and I don't know if you know it, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Again, I've had wild boar many times over in Germany. Is there a difference, or is wild boar just wild boar? I mean, like, venison is venison,
So,
kind of,
well, I mean, like, so most of the boar we have in Ohio, and not Ohio, but in the U.S. are
hey, before
Eurasian.
you answer, I made a mistake, and I just want to correct myself. So there's a lot of people out there who don't like deer hunting or don't like venison because they've had it and it's gamey. Well, that's because whoever gave you that, whether it's your father, your cousin, your buddy. Like, dude, if you shoot a 14-point buck, that's like shooting your grandfather. That's like eating a fucking leather shoe. So that's why I tasted like shit, right? Or
No.
wherever
See,
it is that you're hunting. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to call you out, though, Mark. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you what I disagree. No, and we're both free to disagree with each other. But
No, hang on. But before you do,
So-
my only caveat is it depends on the part of the country and what their food source is, right? Up
It
here in
does.
northern Minnesota, a 14-point buck, that's a swamp buck. Guess what it's going to taste like? It's going to taste like swamp ants.
Yeah,
right?
it looks good on a wall.
But I'm not hunting for trophy, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
You
So-
do you, right? That's liberty.
I
I'm not hunting for trophy. I'm hunting to put meat protein in my freezer. So
Yeah. So where I stand on the whole gamey thing, to me, gamey is a 4-letter word because I think personally it's not a deer's responsibility to taste like beef, right? So well, no. That's not me talking to
we're
you.
not even arguing. I
No,
agree with
no,
everything
no.
you just said.
No, but I've eaten mature bucks, like
Yeah.
big bucks. I'm talking like 250-pound bucks that tasted better than yearling like does, right? Like I've eaten some great does, and I've eaten some bad bucks. The difference though is most people say old bucks taste bad, but if you look at how they treat old bucks and how they treat does, when somebody shoots a doe, the same guy, right? A guy shoots a doe, he's like, cool, I got a doe tag filled. He throws it in the truck, he takes it home or drops off the deer processor and goes to work or goes home or does whatever he's going to do. If he shoots a 14-point buck, he's like, oh my gosh, I shot a giant buck. He puts it in the back of the truck, he drives to the factory where he works, and he goes, everybody got to come outside and you got to see this buck I shot. Everybody comes out and sees it. And they all stand around during lunch break. And it's usually during the rut, which means it's relatively warm. That deer is not cooling off. It's still got its hide on. And then he drives it to where his wife works. He shows her. And then he drives it to the insurance company down the road where his best friend works. He shows everybody there. And then he gets home and he has a beer and he goes, I probably shouldn't drive. And he just, I'll get in the morning. It's cool enough outside. And the next day he drops off the deer processor and it tastes rotten. Well, guess what it is? It's half rotten, right? Like
Yep.
deer hide is an insulator. You effectively took hot meat and threw it in a cooler without ice, closed the lid to keep it warm, and it stayed warm and it decomposed. It tastes bad. The other thing is people tend to so meat treatment is huge. And a lot of people do their own deer processing. I process all my own deer. I don't see a point in paying somebody for something I can do myself. It's like paying somebody to wipe my butt. It's dumb. So I do my own.
Slow down there. Hang on. I could pay somebody to wipe my butt. Like,
I don't know.
Is this a thing?
I feel like if you're in a nursing home, maybe, but that's kind of the same thing. But
it's like probably next year for me. So don't rub that in.
So if you do your own deer, that there's lymph nodes and stuff inside against the femur bone and a few other spots that if you don't remove them and you cut through that, you get lymphatic fluid on your meat. Tastes gamey as hell. And a lot of people don't know that. They just debone a quarter, run through the grinder, and man, my chili tastes gamey. It doesn't taste gamey. It tastes like lymphatic tissue. And so there's those two things combined with the fact that it doesn't taste like beef. Man, I'm here to tell you, I eat, and this is not a brag, I eat entirely wild game. If I get beef, it's because I decided to treat myself and I went to the store and bought a steak for $40 and cooked it up on the grill so me and my girlfriend could have steaks. That's the only time I have beef. I have so much venison. Venison tastes normal and beef tastes gamey. It literally tastes gamey to me. It's entirely what you're used to eating. So, and I'm used to eating.
So you just kind of screwed yourself, and now you can only get that Japanese Kobe beef or whatever, like you said, for $40 for an ounce.
Right.
You just screwed yourself right there, brother.
Yeah. Wagyu beef.
Hey, but not to turn this, but I'm not joking now. You're going to have to come back on for like, some hunting episodes,
Yeah.
when we start
Yeah.
talking a little bit more about Liberty, because we're going to have spring turkey coming up. We got fishing, but then, for us, deer hunting is in the fall, turkey, bear, moose, that kind of stuff. But my only final comment, I don't know if Jeremy wants to get in on this. But my only final comment on that is so we didn't actually disagree with each other. I mean, everything you
No,
just went into like the greater detail. Like I wasn't going to sit and talk about processing because look, and I've gone both ways. That's what she said. On whether you should hang and let it hang for a while. Like, and then I've had some people, here in the local area that I've gotten to know since I've been here, and they're like, oh no, we do it this way. And so 3 years ago, the last time I took a deer before all my injuries and stuff started happening, I did it their system, and I didn't have any problem with it. But so again, there's a litany of variables that you have to take into consideration. Processing it yourself, which I've always done. I've never taken my animal to anywhere else, because when you do that, you take your animal someplace else. They're just mixing your meat with somebody else's meat. You don't even know what you get. I mean, like, do you know that was your deer that they just processed? If it's a good place, it is. But more often than not, they're just throwing in a bunch of venison, throwing a bunch of pork, grinding it, and you're just going to get it.
As somebody who has friends that are deer processors, when they make sausage, like say you want summer sausage, right? It's really, really like, and this is not a dig against deer processors. It's not practical for them to grind 5 pounds of your burger and mix 5 pounds of sausage. They do everything, and then they grind it all, and then they go, we've got 5 pounds for this guy, 2 pounds for that guy, 18 pounds for that guy, and they make the total of that, and they divvy it up. And you're still getting your amount of deer was put in, it's getting back out, but it's not necessarily just your deer. It might be mixed in with somebody else's deer.
No, you're absolutely right. So I think Jeremy, we just spent 30 minutes, well, not quite 30 minutes, but pretty damn close to 30 minutes talking about Evan's awesome freaking experience boar hunting. And by the way, I've yet to be able to actually do boar hunting myself. We got BCP in the house. Jeremy
jumped the gun.
I was waiting on that. I was going to segue, Jeremy. I had a plan, dude. I had a plan. But anyway,
that's not a smooth. Can I segue for you? Speaking of hunting, here's a different guy. Not a segue at all. Sorry.
That wasn't really much of a segue. That was a non sequitur, maybe, but not necessarily a segue. But hey, whatever. Let's roll with it. All right. So here we go. Hey, but on a serious note, though, and I think I'm supposed to be the quarterback trying to move this stuff, the ball down the field. But I love this conversation. I love this because if you are liberty minded, you believe in freedom and your rights, dude, hunting is a part of that. And that doesn't make you a Neanderthal or anything like that. And to Evan's point, man, so my final comment, and then I'll shut up and turn it over to whoever wants to chime in, or Redbeard, you take control and we move it back on track. But when I first left the agency, I took a year off. I took the first year off just to get my head back into a different headspace and timing. And Evan, to your point, one of the things I was thinking of doing was I thought of opening my own kind of bar, restaurant, guide service, tourist kind of related thing that was really focused on wild game. And then I ran up against, the bullshit legal, like, well, you can't serve people live game, and there's workarounds you can do, but all that kind of crap. But to your point, I was like, I'm just going to spend my first year, and everything I eat from my greens, because there's a farm, my aunt runs a farm, and my greens, my vegetables, all that to all my proteins, and the proteins were going to be the proteins I put into the fridge. Now, my hat is off to you, because that is something that as Americans, as humans, we should really strive to, because, I've got a bunch of articles to pop up. None of them will talk about our grocery stores and the attacks on poultry plants and, cattle facilities and, X, Y, and Z. I mean, what more liberty oriented? So here's my concluding comment, and then I'll turn it over to the group. What more way could you pay homage to liberty to have your own 5, 10, even 15 acres, and you've got some chickens, you've got a pig, maybe you've got 1 or 2 head of cattle, and you're doing all that processing and everything we just talked about, Evan, all by yourself, to bring you back in touch with nature and what it means to be a man, what it means to be, part of the food group. I mean, you know, like it really is. I mean, you know, so I'm going to end it on that, and whoever wants to chime in, whether it's about the hunting side of it, we're going to have to do more hunting videos as, you know, going forward. But, you know, but bringing this back into the liberty oriented, because I think hunting, and if you think about that, you know, gun regulations and just even hunting regulations, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you got to have this and I'm like, really? Where in God's green earth does it say I have to do any of that shit? It almost seems like you're the lord of my English estate, and you're saying I shot a rabbit and now I'm going to get my hands cut off or I'm going to be beheaded. Like, fuck you. So,
well, you know, Mark, I'll just take it here for a second, because when we look at these different regulations, right? Why do they make these different regulations? Well, because they took the example of one stupid person typically, and they're like, well, we saw this one incident and we're going to generalize every single person that goes hunting or handles a firearm, and we're just gonna, you know, just make a law or regulation. And I'm going to kind of pick on a group of people here. And they know who they are. But let's be honest, for the hunters that buy a brand new Weatherby 300 Winchester Magnum, and they only sight it in once a year, which is a day before they go out hunting. They don't even use the same load of ammo that they're going to use when they go out hunting. And they make that 300, 400, 500 yard shot, whatever it is they're shooting. And they're like, well, I didn't mean to injure the deer. And I don't understand why my bullet dropped 3.5 inches from where I was aiming. Well, because you, in my opinion, were negligent in the fact that you didn't even sight in with the ammo that you were using. And you failed to account for other things that you should have accounted for to make that ethical kill, like Evan and Mark were talking about. I mean, you are the reason why stupid people feel the need to make laws, because you're negligent. And I know that some people might get up in arms about that, but let's be honest, like, dude, like, it's not best practice. It's not ethical practice. It's not even, I would say it's almost immoral. Unless you have a guarantee that your rifle is going to shoot the same way with a different ammo from sighting it in over a year ago, on the one weekend you decided to go out to hunt. If there's a gun like that, I want to buy it, because that's miraculous. Like, I'll give you a boatload of money for that. And I think anybody else would too.
But more to your point is it's the either intentional or inadvertent. And it doesn't matter, right? You know, again, whether you're, you know, malicious, you know, I'm sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? Whether you intended to do it or you didn't intend to do it, it's inconsequential. You did not take proper steps. You did not do the proper rehearsals, the proper cleaning, the proper maintenance, the proper, you know, whatever. And you are going to rush out. And to Evan's point, and you're going to rush out. And unfortunately, and I'm not going to tell the stories, but I've probably got about 4 or 5 stories I could tell to Jeremy's point, of idiots who shouldn't even have been out hunting. And so you pass laws, and now, you know, like, so I'm a bow hunter, right? So no offense to anyone who's a gun hunter. I think Evan's exactly right. And if it really mattered down to, like, hey, I'm not going to buy a single bit of beef unless I'm buying that, you know, Kobe beef that, you know, Evan's got the money for, you know, every, you know, once a year, you know, Evan, once a year, Evan, once a year. But, you know, and I'm going to keep my freezer full of, like, you know, of protein and other sources. Well, that's somebody who takes it seriously, you know, so, but I'm going to be punished for the guy who only, to Jeremy, to your point, who takes 3 seconds on a Friday night while he's drinking beer with his buddies to go out into the stand tomorrow, because it's hunt camp, you know, and it's, you know, and then he takes that, to Evan's point, and or to your point, Jeremy, like, or even to my point, and he takes that shitty shot, injures the animal, makes the animal suffer. There's nothing humane about any of that kind of crap, you know. And Bubba, and if you are a person who's gone out hunting, and you and this is part of your lifestyle, you know what I'm talking about. And now everybody's got to wear orange. And so as a bow hunter, I don't have to in Minnesota, you know, and I'm, no offense to anybody who gun hunts, but I just call them Bobs, Blaze Orange Buffoons. Not everybody who's a gun hunter is that, but God dang it. Unfortunately, I've seen a bunch of those people who, man, you know, like, so liberty, if you are a liberty focused individual, you should know better than that. And you should, and I guess kind of to Evan's point, and see, we're going to have to do this again, because maybe we need to talk a little Fred Bear and just like some hunting ethics and morals and look, it's no harm. You don't know what you don't know. Same thing with liberty. We don't know what we don't know. Oh, what do you mean? I should be upset that the Fed did this, or I shouldn't be upset. Like, no, God dang it. You got to do your own research. And to Jeremy's point, and that means you've got to do you've got to do the reps. You've got to put in the muscle memory, whether it's in your brain, in your heart, or in how you're manipulating whatever that platform is that you're going to use to put meat on your fridge, or on your table that day. I mean,
well, and just to kind of make a connection here, so it hopefully creates somewhat of a segue, is like, if you look at how those individuals conduct themselves, it's the same as the average person who's like, well, like, I don't understand how we got here. Like, I thought I knew everything, and I was totally prepared as it pertains to like terrible laws or legislation or bills or whatever it is. And it's the same level of like, just like lack of preparation and negligence. Like, well, these people are tyrants and these people are doing this. Okay, yeah, like, I'm not going to disagree with you, but what did you do to affect the difference? Like, what did you do to make that change? Because it's the same thing as a hunter. Like, you can complain about the situation all you want and as to why you failed, but let's look at the preparation. Like, if you weren't involved in the process enough to the point to where you could have created that desired change or that desired outcome, don't be surprised what the end result is, which is ultimately a maimed creature. And as it pertains to us, we're a maimed society because we just, okay, whatever, we'll just pass the buck down the road. No, it's got to stop with us. It starts with us and it stops with us. And I was explaining this with you, Mark. The most effectual way to do this, everybody's so obsessed about federal power, federal power, federal power. Well, where does most of the power reside? Not with the federal government. It resides with the communities, it resides with the states, and it ultimately resides with the people. So if we are negligent in our practices, if we are negligent in supporting our communities in the lower levels, which is the states, then the federal government's going to go and do whatever it wants to do. And we're left here sitting, well, I don't understand why it got this way. Well, it got this way because you neglected to do what you were expected to do.
Because we let it. We didn't do what the Constitution, our founding fathers, and God, our souls, however you want to phrase it, we didn't do what we knew we should have done.
And that expectation was
two great examples of that. You look at and they're polar opposites, but they both make the same point. You look at California and you look at Texas. California, like, marijuana was illegal federally. It still is illegal federally, but California was like, we're going to legalize pot. And the feds are like, you can't do that. And they're like, deal with it. And they did. And now there's like 30 states that allowed pot, that legalized pot. Ohio just legalized it. Texas, and again, those states did that. The states that did things like that did that because the people said, hey, we're tired of this. We disagree with this. And enough people said that the governor said, well, maybe we should legalize this. And the feds aren't going to do anything about it because their job is to regulate on a level that they can handle. And they can't handle when an entire state says no. Texas, 2 years ago, said, you know what? Looking at the laws about suppressors, that's y'all have the NFA thing, and that's a tax. That's federal. Federal's for interstate. So based on that interpretation, we're not going to require tax stamps. If somebody buys a suppressor that's made here and it stays here, we're not going to require one. And the ATF flipped out. They absolutely lost their crap. And they said, you can't do that. We'll come down. They made all these threats. And Texas went, cool, go ahead.
And
the ATF can't. And so now they're in the Supreme Court over the whole thing. And Texas isn't backing down because Texas is like a third of the country. And
I'm jumping ahead here a little bit, but kind of bringing this back into the freedom thing. So give me a second here. So I was going to do this. Jeremy kind of knew about this. I talked about it. Instead of a mad minute, I was just going to do this data dump. I had gleaned a whole bunch of articles just from today. So here, as we're talking, I'll just say it this way. So here's the number of articles I just found from the news today, right? And Jeremy can back this up. I'll show the timestamp. I sent this from my account to Mission Critical 9 hours ago. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's just the first email. And
you got an IHOP menu
and
there.
hang on. So 13, 14. I sent 14 articles to our account here today for potential use in the podcast. And you guys just nailed that right there. Man, it's on us, but there is some good news, right? And so I'm kind of jumping ahead just a tad, but but to what you just said right there, Evan, is, so where did it just go? Maybe it came in at the end. Okay, here we go. So here, on that note, so to what you're just saying, to the whole point here about, liberty oriented and where we need to go and how we need to start rising up and making this happen is just this right here. And let me come back over to our view, right? Look, and I don't know if I'm going to put these articles in there. People can figure this stuff out. It's like, hopefully you're paying attention to the news. So to your point, like there is a hope though. There is a little bit of hope, right? We're starting to see people waking up because, your guys' point right there, it's like, well, this, that, and other. I'm like, no, the Second Amendment clearly states, like, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to have my own warship or my own, like Joe Biden says, well, you'll need a fighter plane. Yeah, well, actually, our Constitution says I should be able to have that. I have the right to defend myself, right? So kind of just getting into a slightly different thing more on the whole sense of liberty. But, we'll see if this passes in Louisiana. I think that'll make, off the top of my head, I think that'll make 26 or 27 states. Which is just also crazy because it's right there in the friggin' Constitution. Right. So kind of tying in what Evan said, and then, God dang it, that way with Jeremy over here. Now you used to be over the other side, but no, to your point, it's like, I don't need anyone's permission for this. I mean, it's right there in our legal documents, just as like, border control. It's right there in the fucking law. I don't need anyone's permission for this. And then, using hunting was a nice segue into this. Yeah, I don't need your permission to do this. What are you talking about? Now I can't go and kill Farmer Smith's cows or some shit like that. And of course I can't hunt on somebody else's land, and if state land is regulated, but if it's public or if it's mine, screw you.
Well, to follow, but the thing is though, I will step in. I will say something about the whole hunting laws thing. So I've got a degree in wildlife management. I went to college for it and stuff. Ohio didn't even have deer up until, when did we start having deer again? Like the 40s, they started bringing deer back. And the reason why we ran out of deer is the same reason why bison nearly went extinct, market hunting specifically. They didn't have any regulation. There were a lot of people that would go out and just shoot stuff, and they would drag it into the market, they would sell it. And that's specifically that is the reason why we don't allow any type of sale of wild game.
Well, no, hang on a second. But here's where I would just disagree. And I'm, and this is fine for the podcast. I mean, I think we agree, but a slight disagreement. And I don't know who will be on my side or who'll be against me, but it's like, no, we regulate and control those people who do the bad things. See, because to me, it's a slippery slope. Hey, a guy goes off and steals a car or steals catalytic converters or uses a handgun in the commission of a crime. But I'm an innocent person and I haven't done any of that stuff. Why are you punishing me? That's my only point on that.
Well,
right?
But the difference is, so like I was going to say, I'm a libertarian, right? Like I am like pretty close, but there's a few things that I'm not quite libertarian on, but I'm pretty darn libertarian.
Hey, you just got Jeremy and I. Better Call Paul was the only one who didn't like that. But Jeremy and I gave you like, brother.
I didn't say I didn't like it.
The first thing you didn't say you did like.
The border.
But proving my point, you didn't say you did like it, so therefore you must not like it.
But so here's here's my definition of a libertarian, as I understand it, is I believe that the government shouldn't have a say in what I do in my personal life, as long as it doesn't affect my neighbor, right? Whoever my neighbor is. Once it infringes on my neighbor's rights, then there needs to be rules, right? That's the baseline of libertarianism. Now, if you look at hunting laws, you have animals that exist and cover wide ranges, right? Deer don't cover a huge wide range, but they very rarely does somebody have property that it doesn't happen. I don't care if you own 200,000 acres. There are deer that cross property lines, right? So if you don't regulate, if you don't like control how hunting or regulate how hunting is done on a population-wide basis, you could be infringing on your neighbor because you could be shooting deer that he viewed that he could say, well, these are mine. It's on my property. And you say, well, it's on my property. Well, it's considered community property until it's harvested. And that's the only reason we have regulation for that. We have things like migratory birds. Those cover everywhere from like some of the birds that we shoot, like ducks, for example, we shoot in the fall. Those end up all the way in Mexico, even further than Mexico in the winter.
Depending on depending on the species.
And so we literally have international treaties between Mexico and Canada, international, like federal treaties, just like NATO level treaties over birds that migrate because of that thing, because we don't want to be like, oh, we're going to protect this species and super regulate the hunting of it. And then they all migrate to Mexico and then everybody just obliterates them. We have no more like wood ducks, for example. The reason we have those regulations is because basically we have rules because somebody broke them and enough people broke them, enough people stepped out of line that we have to have those rules.
And there it is. And that's my only point. And let's bring this kind of back again over into the freedom side. I mean, because we're going to have to, sir, you're going to have to come on. We're going to have hunting conversation. Plain and simple, right? Plain and simple. But so again, I can sit here and say, I agree with you. I disagree with you, but I agree with that last statement. The reason we have this is because we have idiots who've done shit, or to your point, and maybe it's not, people who are idiots, maybe it's people who are here in Minnesota, and when the Canadian geese or the white geese or whatever migratory birds coming through, we all love that for whatever reason, and we just lace to that population. Well, okay, then that has an environmental impact, and this is where I think every good libertarian, every good conservative wants to conserve. We want to conserve this stuff. So of course we don't want to do that. That's because then you're not going to have and as you well know, populations already have their peaks and valleys anyway. Grouse up here in Minnesota, it's about a 4-year cycle. You'll have it's feast and famine, right? So you don't want to just destroy that population. And then to my point earlier with Redbeard, on my 40 acres, that wasn't me talking about being greedy and selling them. It's it's like, hey, this is how much venison I need for me, and here's what's going through my property. And you're absolutely right, and what's coming into my property they're not my deer. They're the deer passing through my property because they're going to feeding or water, or sometimes on my property for bed down, and then the rut, all that kind of stuff comes into play. And if you are a conservative, if you believe in conservation, you would already know these things. And you're like, hey man, I just don't have that much migrating through my property this year. And if I want to have more next year, and if I want to have Tommy above me and Susie below me to be able to have a deer, I can't just shoot every deer on my property this year. That's stupid, right?
Well, and to agree with your standpoint, a lot of people, I've talked to there's a lot of people in my town. It's a pretty depressed area who are like, oh, somebody's starving. I think they should just shoot all the deer they want, whatever else. For one, nobody starves in America today. I'm sorry. But aside from that, we've got people on welfare that are eating lobster. I have a hard time believing people are starving today. Ooh, at least where I live, I've seen a lot, but that's not my point. I want to go on a big tangent about that. People say, well, I shouldn't have to buy a tag to shoot deer on my property. And they're right. At least in Ohio, you don't have to buy deer tags if you're a landowner. You can shoot deer on your property. You are limited on how many you can shoot, just like anybody else. But you can
we have something similar there. So that's actually that's kind of fair,
So people are like, I shouldn't get yelled at for shooting the king's deer. That's not how it works in the U.S. You can shoot deer on your property. It has to be within the designated season, and there are reasons for that. That's to guarantee deer for future generations.
Who monitors that? How do they know that you only killed so much on your property? That's an intrusion on your property.
It's you self-report. That's all it is right there.
Yep.
So and there are people that break that rule. There are people that break the rule every year and never get caught. I'm not condoning that. We're all our own individuals, and you do what your conscience tells you to do. But
let's all slow it down a second, because we're turning this into a hunting podcast, and I've got a problem with this, right?
This is liberty.
My work here is done, fellas.
Tyrant.
This is liberty here. It's about what you have. What you can do on your own property. That is liberty.
Well, okay. But hang on, because we could use, unless we want to use hunting as the analogy for liberty through the rest of this podcast, which we can. I do think but because and no offense, I kind of want to steer it over in one or two other directions because there's some other issues where liberty is clearly being infringed. I think there is definitely room for a very good, honest, and an adult and educated debate on some of these hunting conversations that we just brought up. But there's a lot of things that Evan just pointed out, which are, again, if you're a conservationist, if you're a conservative, if you believe in, and if you appreciate nature, these things aren't going to be annoying to you because they're going to make sense. What is, maybe some things are annoying to you. Like, why do I have to wear orange? Because the others, 3 other stupid people out of 100, shoot each other, or I heard something. And as a kid, I remember this with my dad, a bunch of guys, like, you guys better start whistling the whole rest of the way down. Like, cause they were the guys who were just shooting at everything they just fucking heard. And my dad was like, you need to get the F out of the woods right now.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yep.
So there is room for that discussion. Right. But let's kind of bring it back over into the whole, like, liberty and using some other analogies, because we just spent 40 some minutes talking about hunting. And I think that might just be because I'm hungry. And Evan, God dang you, I don't have any venison. I couldn't go hunting. I'm venison free right now, man.
Come on down sometime. We'll hang out. We'll go shoot stuff at the range, and we'll eat tons of venison.
But at least you're not like Redbeard, because Redbeard, he would be doing this. Imagine if this was a plate. He'd be like, with a fork, he'd be like eating venison. Like, oh, I'm sorry, Mark, what was that you were talking about? And he would just be eating it in front of us.
He's so bent out of shape about that, and I can't imagine why. And I'm perfectly accepting when he eats on the phone with me, but he just
that never happens. That never happens. It's always.
Well, I would like to point out that if you come down and hang out, unlike Redbeard, I will not just supply you with venison. I'll have some good bourbon to go with it.
Oh, see that Redbeard, you could learn a thing or two from this young man here.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with not drinking.
Hey,
I would just like to point out that animal did not die, so it could be paired with Pepsi. That's all.
That person is not real in the back of the plane. that animal is not real.
Hey,
birds aren't real, man. Birds aren't real.
If anyone ever watches this podcast, I'm not even going to apologize. We clearly got off the rails from the very beginning here. And I don't know if we're going to get back. So just strap in and just go for the ride, right? Just go for the ride.
Yeah.
It's going to go where it's going to go. Redbeard, I know you got to bounce here in a little bit. God bless you. You're going to go out and do some heavy lifting. And, but hey, so let's kind of give you, let's kind of maybe use you as the non sequitur segue into kind of some of the other aspects of Freedom Week or Liberty Week, excuse me, and give you your final kind of comments, because you got only a few more minutes left. Is that correct?
Yeah, unfortunately, okay. And then I got to go do the thing, the work thing. But hey, I get paid, so I sit in the water all night.
All right, so what do you got? And whether it's something that you want to specifically talk about, or pushing this in a new direction, or God, how are we going to do the outro without you? I think I'm just going to play Spartacus as the outro. So with your permission, it's cool, but it's not as cool as you for the outro. But with your permission, I'll do Spartacus as the outro in your absence. Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no,
okay.
I'm actually honored that you would do that.
Oh,
so.
Really? I thought that was kind of an honor for the Spartacus show, but to be, hang on, we're going to stand in for Redbeard's outro. Yeah, that's awesome.
Fair enough. Either way.
Yeah, to be fair, that was a pretty solid show. They don't make very many good shows like that anymore.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I will say real quick, it is a shame that the original guy died. Like actually died in real life.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He didn't make it. He did season 1, and then he died of cancer, some type of cancer.
Yeah, so super sad. Sad. So
I didn't realize that.
My drink out to him and his family. But when we look at liberty, in Mark, I know this is an area that we had touched on somewhat briefly on Tuesday. But there is a conversation that we're having pertaining to social media. And I know Better Call Paul's going to be able to jump in on this one with every bit of fervor as he has before in this particular conversation. And I think he'll be able to carry forth my spirit after this, after I leave. So, but when we look at social media as it pertains to liberty, look, there's no question about it. Social media can be used as much for good as it can for ill. I brought up briefly at the end of our segment on Tuesday about how, you do see a lot of these companies that are banning certain speech, or they're banning certain people. And let's be honest here. These are private companies. They do have the ability to do what they want with their companies. However, where it becomes problematic is the fact that you've started to see such an erroneous or an egregious amount of government involvement in these decisions, especially when it came down to the Rona, and what the government was saying to these companies and saying, hey, we want you to block news articles for this, or we want you to stop people from saying this. So basically like shadow banning them for no reason whatsoever and labeling it as misinformation or whatever. Well, in a liberty-oriented society, misinformation can and should exist for the simple fact that you have to, if you don't allow it, right, you're assuming that your constituents are too stupid. So that's an insult to me and everybody else here, because if you think we're too stupid to figure this out, then I'd hate to know what else you have to say about me. But in the end of the day,
to that point, what was that thing last year, a year, 2 years ago? I think it was MSNBC or NBC. Hey, we can read this, but you guys can't. There was some document they were claiming that the media can read it, but you guys can't. So trust us. We'll read it and tell you what it said.
And mind you, and I know that, and this is going to hopefully spool you guys up, albeit in a somewhat different area. Mark, I know we've talked about this before, but look at the coverage of media when it comes to IDs, or to education standards as it pertains to minority segments within our community, right? Like, these people will literally parrot this realm of like, oh, well, like voter ID is racist. Why? Because the people that you're saying it's racist against are too stupid to get the IDs. Like, you're racist, if anything. And on top of that, you want to lower the standards to get into a place like Harvard or any of these other places. Because why? Because the people that are applying, you don't assume that they can be intelligent enough to make those standards. And not just for universities or colleges, you're seeing this in high school. So you're calling these people stupid while giving them an education that, let's be honest, is practically worthless anyway. So you're literally enslaving these people via the fact that you're victimizing these people. You're not even giving them an education worth getting to begin with. And then once they've been dumbed down and well under your thumb, you're going to say like, oh, well, we know what's best for you. And we all know the types of people that are putting out this, and we all know the different social media accounts that perpetuate this type of stuff. And dude, like, it's examples of what's wrong with social media. But if you want to look at what the good of social media is, dude, you have First Amendment auditors. You have a lot of examples of law enforcement being held accountable for things that they've done wrong or whatever the case is. And you also have audits pertaining to government and government entities. You have a lot of people that are harnessing social media to go out and do good, just as much as people are harnessing it to do a lot of harm. So it's a very precarious situation.
Just to your point right there.
I think we can win on this, though, but it's going to take time, just as with anything else.
But just to your point, I mean, so I think you guys can all see this. I just popped it up. This is one of the things I was going to talk about just in a kind of little mad minute thing. But Jeremy, just to your point, so liberty.
Yep.
We need to have this stuff when this happens right here, and when a reporter is fired, and then you seize all of her documents and her media. Yeah, because you just didn't like what she was talking about. Like, that's not that is an antithesis to what Redbeard just said. That's not how it's supposed to happen ever. That's not what's supposed to happen. Period.
Yeah. So I
and that should be a dire. That should be a your comments right there. That should be a dire warning. Your comment should be a dire warning to America right now.
Yeah. I hope that keys you guys up. Unfortunately, I got to go. I hate to leave you at such a topsy-turvy point, but I think I trust that you guys are going to take it in a good direction, and there's a lot of smart dudes here. So I appreciate you
Hey,
guys.
again, I'm gonna play that little clip from Spartacus, but give us one little kind of just give us a little tease. You don't have to give us an outro. Just give us a little
Yeah.
tease.
Look, all I'm going to say is when it comes down to liberty, when it comes down to making change, like it all starts with each and every one of us. It starts with you, it starts with me, and we have to get involved. And I understand that that takes work, and I understand that people have a busy schedule. But in the end of the day, like your schedule is going to be the last thing you're going to complain about when you have people that are encroaching so much on your life and on the life of your neighbors and in the people around you in your communities. And then at that point, you can't ask how we got here. So the difference starts with you and each and every single one of us. Like Marcus said, we are the resistance. It befalls us. There is an expectation that befalls us, and we are responsible for not only safeguarding our rights and our liberties, because rights and liberties not exercised are those not kept, but at the same time, we are responsible for being the guardians of proper government, of being the sentinels of liberty. And so we have to take part in this. We can't shy away from our responsibilities any further. And it doesn't just start and end with the ballot box. It starts and ends with us being involved, being educated, and being active. So
fuck yeah. That's what I think.
One of my favorite people in the conservation circle says that the world's run by people that show up.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
there's so many things like hunting, for example. Everybody says I don't like the DNR. I don't like the DNR in Ohio. There's a lot of the things they've done have been really dumb over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they have a public forum every year, and like I want to say it's in January, and you can show up. It's in Columbus, in the middle of the state.
Do it,
Everybody's
man.
about the same distance, and go tell them what you want to hear because you're the one that signs their paycheck at the end of the day.
Yep.
The same applies to all of our like public service people, all of our representatives. You can call them and like chew them out on the phone and be like, hey, I don't like that you did this, or hey, I don't like this bill that's up. Please don't sign it. Maybe your view, maybe your word doesn't mean a whole lot as one person, but if you're one of 1,000, I mean, a single raindrop raises the ocean.
And I know Redbeard's got to bounce, but just to that point, just to kind of maybe put a little bow or a cherry on top. But Evan, and again, I'm not arguing with you, but I don't know if I necessarily believe that you're just one voice and that doesn't count. That could be, think about this. There's 999 people who filed the complaint, and it hasn't created the pressure necessary to break through the wall or, leave an impact on that person's mind. And you are the final straw that like gets that message through or gets that other group of people to stand up and start talking about it or dancing, like those types of things. No, dude, if we all just sit there and say, well, I'm just one person. Well, yeah, you're just
That's
one vote.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
And just to that point, I want to just say one more thing for what Evan had mentioned. But look, like if you show up and you're active, you make the calls, you write the letters, you do that. What people need to understand is that's also saying I do not consent to what it is that you're doing. Dude, like
I stand in opposition to your bullshit.
Like if you're not at least putting that out there first, like you have all these dudes that really want to go like willy-nilly and they're like, oh, we're gonna like have a revolution or we're gonna do this. Like, dude, like you didn't even do like the fundamental things that are we have to do to change. Like you just want to jump right to arms. It's like that's not like these people don't understand how tirelessly over the 5-6 years that's well documented our founders went through, but those issues started like 20-30 years before that. Like that was that changing of the mind happened a long time ago, and it wasn't until the 1700s or the 1770s, I'm sorry, that really started to get traction. But the minds were changing already, dude. Like you've got to be putting in the work before you even like that is the worst case scenario. And in on this last notion, I firmly don't believe that a lot of people who call to or clamor to arms and want to deal with stuff in that way, like they're not ready to count the costs. They really aren't, because when that cost is laying in front of you with a family member or a friend of yours that didn't like what you had to say, I'm here to tell you, like, you can say what you want, but I guarantee you most people are going to be, they're going to be broken inside, because even if you didn't like that person, it's still someone you know. And that hits different, man. It hits a lot different than this fantasy that people like to portray themselves, this war porn, if you will. And it's not that way. Anybody, Mark, and you know this, like, it's ugly. You know, like, there's nothing good about fighting other people. It's
No.
bad business, man. So
Well, hey, I know you got to bounce.
Yeah.
You and I will talk offline, because something you just said, and I love it. This is all you. You brought this up when we've talked about this on the phone, but we got to bring this up in maybe Liberty Week Part 2. So I'm just saying this before you go. That the time necessary to influence and bring about change.
Yeah.
This, like you said, this isn't, I'm just going to wake up tomorrow and grab my, that's bullshit. You know,
Yeah.
This unfortunately takes time, and it's unfortunate, but it's necessary, because you can't go from zero to bang, bang, pew, pew. No, that's not how this works. That's the wrong way of doing things.
Right.
You know, because it's also like, it's also a way of saying you've given up. I'm just going to go to violence. That's not the solution here. You've given up and you've not really won your argument. If you just resort to violence, there's still going to be a shit ton of people like, well, you guys are just thugs, you know?
Yeah. You're no different than the government.
If I may, I said this the last time I was on. We've all been told by our parents, there's two things you don't talk about at the dinner table. You know, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics. And I think that is the number one reason why we are where we are right now, why we had all the riots in 2020. Because we have people who right now, it's popular to have one viewpoint. It's very unpopular. And I'm not going to play politics. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
I know where you guys stand. You know where I stand. I'm in the same team as you guys. Aside from that, right now it's really popular to have to vote one color, to be on one side. And if you go to a bar, I challenge anybody here to go to a bar sometime, even if you don't drink, order a soda, sit at the bar on a Friday night and listen to people talk. And somebody will bring up, oh, I heard something Trump said the other day, for example. Oh, that guy. And everybody else will go, oh, yeah, that guy. And they'll start talking about it. And there'll be 3 or 4 people that will just kind of lean forward and go back to drinking their drink. And they won't say anything, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that side of the country is convinced that they are the majority.
That's
and
right.
That nobody else has any conflicting view. If you do, you're an extremist, or you're one of the very few. And just because you're dumb and you're uneducated. And the reason why we're at that point where half the country thinks the other half is crazy is because we haven't communicated. And if we talked more about where we're at politically, I go to the local bar and I sit down for a beer with my burger, and somebody says, oh, yeah, that guy's nuts, whenever Trump comes on, or Vivek Ramaswamy, or whoever else comes on. And I go, why do you say that? And they look at me and go, like, with a look on their face, like, I can't believe you're going to talk politics at the bar? Seriously? I'm like, yeah. Why do you think that? Let's have an educated discussion. Nobody's going to get mad. I promise you, I'm not going to punch you no matter what you say to me. Like, let's just talk. Let's be adults. And at the end of the conversation, very rarely if I change their opinion, and they generally don't change my opinion, but at least now I'm not a crazy extremist, and he's not crazy either. He has opinions that I disagree with. I'm not going to change them, but now he doesn't seem so crazy, and now I don't seem like a crazy gun-toting psycho. Because he's like, well, shoot, this guy's not at all what CBS says that anybody that votes that direction is. It's because we don't talk that people think that they're either alone, or they think that the other side is a minority. This country is split down the middle 50-50. And the sooner we figure that out, the sooner we communicate it, the sooner we find a happy middle ground.
That's right.
The middle ground isn't ideal, but it's a whole lot better than the extreme end of things. And none of us want that. Nobody
it starts the repair process anyways. So
exactly.
All right, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate all you guys, and hopefully I will be back on next Friday uninterrupted and be able to spend more time with each of you wonderful people, and or the next time I see you guys on live. So
well, hey, it was awesome hanging out, man.
Yeah.
If you're looking for any type of, like, you just get out of here, just go.
Yeah. All right, guys. Toodles.
All right, my good man. See ya. Thanks. All right, later, Jeremy. So let's bring it over to BCP. You know, you've done a great job sitting here putting up with this bullshit as we're all talking. But again, you already see, you stepped right into the middle of a hornet's nest. I want to make one comment and then turn it over to you, and you take it wherever you want to go. And I just want to wrap up what Evan and Jeremy were just talking about, like that bar comment, having a conversation, because I've done that in my life too, where somebody's at the bar and they're just saying some crazy stuff. And to Evan, to your point, I'm like, well, hey, and you feign, there's a couple different approaches. You can feign ignorance. I never go into it like, being confrontational, hey, but I thought they did, I thought they did this, or wasn't that the other guy who said that? Or, well, but hang on, but if that's wrong, well, what about the thing that so-and-so did? Like you do that kind of thing to draw it out. And honestly, Evan, to your point, we'll bring this over to Paul, but I'm not really doing that for the person I'm talking to, because I hate to say this, but there are some people where you can just listen to them and you already know where they're coming from. I think there's, that's judgmental, reading judging a book by its cover. I've had a bunch of people judge me like, oh, you're a military, you're I'm like, you don't know the first effing thing about me. And then what I liked about when we were like getting all worked up on the hunting stuff, dude, and then you said, I'm a libertarian. Dude, if I were to classify myself as anything, I'm probably a fiscally conservative libertarian. But I don't even like you giving myself like, dude, if this or guy or gal's got a good idea, I'm okay with that. If this, like, I just kind of go like, that makes sense. And like, I don't want to be pigeonholed in any one thing, because that's just a stupid way of looking at stuff. That's like saying everything's black and white, and that's not true at all. So,
man, what's funny is like to continue that, and obviously we want BCP to talk because he hasn't said jack, and I really want to hear what he says.
Hey, but just
the way
to
the world goes around everything.
Go.
Maybe before you say it, when I bring one of you guys full screen, I can still see him behind screen. He has been slamming whatever he's drinking. I hope it's water. He's on like number 8 already. But all right, go ahead, sir.
45 minutes, no talking.
Yeah.
So that's
I'm sorry. Did Paul hear me say that? Oops.
Yeah.
No. So like, and what gets me though is like, so I can't speak for either of you guys, but like, I'm extremely conservative, and very right leaning. But like, what gets me is everybody, like, it seems to me that most people seem to think they have to be exclusively in one camp, and whatever that camp says, you have to be behind it. And like, there aren't that many free thinkers these days. It seems like when I say free thinker, none of us are entirely free thinking. None of us. We all find people we agree with, and then we tend to agree with them. But like, there are things I disagree with Trump on strongly, and there's a few things I've agreed with Biden on. For example, because those are two current hot people, I strongly disagree with Biden on like 98, 99% of what he said. And I strongly agree with Trump with a lot of what he said. But there's things I disagree with both of them on. There are a lot of fanatical people on the left, and I do mean fanatical people.
Yeah.
And I've met more fanatical leftists than I have right-leaning people. But the truth of the matter is, I've met some people that are like, I mean, crazy right-leaning people. Not many, but I've met some, and people say, "Oh, you just think that everybody on your side is, whatever." And it's like, I've met some pretty crazy right-leaning people. Like, oh no, there's a conspiracy, and he's going to come out with all these new papers, and next week he's going to drop them, and everything's going to change. And then next week comes, oh no, it's actually going to be the week after. I know some people who know people.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, come on, man. Like, there are
but
crazies on both of our sides.
I was just going to say, but that works on both sides.
Both ways.
Back in 2016, and I'm not going to name any names, but I had some people reaching out to me and who were all aboard with the Russia Gate, the PP dossier. And I'm like, I even had, at one point somebody was like pissed off that Trump was having a military parade on the 4th of July. And I'm like, and my response was just simple. I was like, dude, every major city in America is having the military and a 4th of July. What are you effing talking about? Like, are you mad at everybody having the military and 4th of July parades? Is that your argument? Like, and then it was like, well, I'm like, come on, man. Just like, let's all just grow the fuck up for a second,
Well, have you heard about the elevator tape?
Paul, I have not.
Paul, have you heard the elevator tape?
I have heard about the elevator tape.
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know, the news, there was a story like news organizations had where there may be a tape where Trump is in an elevator and he might be doing something. We don't know what it is, and we don't know if the tape exists. But if it exists, we want to find it. And that was literally a news story for a while. It was like, guys, come on. Like, there has to be something else to write about. Anything.
Okay.
Like like a water skiing squirrel, like Anchorman. There has to be something you can talk about. Like, if there's a tape, let's see it. Like, I'm all for it. Like, let's see it. If there's a Russian prostitute video, great. The guy's a scumbag. Show us. If it's not, if you don't have the tape, then okay. Like, and you know what? Being a scumbag does not mean you're a bad leader. And being a good leader does not mean you're not a scumbag. I know a lot of people that are fantastic foremen at like warehouse jobs and stuff, fantastic foremen, and they're complete jerks. I wouldn't like my dad's expression. My dad was in the Army, and he got an expression from it. He's like, I wouldn't spit down their throat if their guts were on fire. Like, awful people. But they're good at their jobs. That doesn't mean you're bad at your jobs. And being a good person doesn't mean you're good at your jobs either. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
But if you've got proof, show it. If not, move on.
Well, and again, so that just kind of like ties into the whole liberty thing. Like, part of liberty is like, yeah, come on, everybody's their own human beings, and you acknowledge that, right? That's what a libertarian is. Like, I don't care what you do in the privacy of your own house. Just don't, like, I shouldn't have to pay for it, and as long as it doesn't hurt me. Paul, you know, I obviously can't speak for you, but I got to get you into the fight here before you just, you know, fall asleep. I mean, it's so dark in your room.
I'm nodding, Mark. I'm honestly nodding. And
well, let's get you in here. Let's have you warm up your internal fire, sir. All right.
So
liberty, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to work myself from the most current conversations back. And the first thing is, libertarians are also open border by their platform policy. That's where I disagree with them, and that's why I can't be one. So if you can, you know, say that you don't agree with that, then that's fine. But so I don't identify with any party. So, or you know, but the only and Evan, you said you agree with some of Joe Biden. The only thing I agree with Joe Biden is the love of ice cream, and I just don't eat it because it will make me fat. Right?
That may or may not be the 2% I was talking about.
It might be.
Aversion to stairs. I'm slightly. I get a little bit of vertigo, so an aversion to stairs might be part of it. Yeah, but yeah, you know.
No, I get it, and I have the same trouble. My family's been making fun of me for years because I trip up the steps, and I've been doing that since I was 20. So it's not about Biden being old. I do that. It must be a Pennsylvania thing. I was born in Pennsylvania. So, you know, we trip up steps. I don't know. So I don't blame him for that. But it's just
I actually think that might have something to do with your Italian ancestry.
But Biden's not Italian. So I'm not sure where you're going.
I think
then that was probably racist of me to say.
It's not
side
racist.
Note, I think it would be fun to make a map that has all the predominant stereotypes for people from that state. That'd be hilarious. Like,
I thought you were going to talk about making a map of every place that Joe Biden has tripped or fallen down. I thought you were going to make a map of, and Joe Biden fell off his bike here. He tripped on an ice cream cone here. I thought you were going to make a map about that. I didn't know it was about Pennsylvanians.
Ohioans are terrified of any precipitation, and they're all mean. West Virginians, like, they're all about family. Kentucky, it's like, you know, the banjo thing. Apparently Pennsylvania, y'all are afraid of stairs. Like it would be great to come up with like all the stereotypes, and we can just pick on ourselves, you know? That'd be funny.
Yeah. No, I mean, I absolutely trip up steps. I can't make fun of Biden for that. And I do love ice cream, but I'm not gonna, you know. But the dude's 80 years old, 80 plus. Yeah. So I give him a break.
I feel like the world is. I feel like the world has been done a great disservice by the fact we don't have any heavily caffeinated ice cream.
Did coffee ice cream used to have caffeine in it? I don't think
that's
it did.
Not the. I don't mean coffee. I mean like stuff that's like get cocaine, and drop back up to be just legal. Put that in ice cream. Like I want Paul.
Paul, Evans on a cocaine fueled rant. Bring us back into
Yeah.
conversations about liberty here, please.
Honestly,
That was a joke. I am not saying that Evan is doing cocaine.
No,
So
no,
YouTube,
I
screw
as
you.
much as I love
YouTube.
caffeine, I love caffeine so much that I cannot ever be allowed to try cocaine because I would probably like it. So yeah, caffeine. I draw the line at caffeine.
Well, that is the whole thing about drugs. I mean, not the sidebar, but like, shit. Yeah, seriously. There's some of us with certain types of personalities that if we could get the drugs we really wanted, like our personalities would glom onto them. Like some people would be like, dude, I love acid. Or, what is that new thing that, Paul, what is that one to open up your minds?
I don't know all that stuff.
DMT,
Ayahuasca.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. All right, BCP,
okay.
Bring us back into reality here, my good man.
Yeah. So my problems with Biden have nothing to do with his current. Well, some of them do, but I knew him as a senator long ago. He was a major horrible human being back then. He was a horrible human being during the Clarence Thomas trial. He is an absolute racist, and I cannot believe he is in office. I'll leave Biden with that. Okay. When we talked about going to bars, the last time I went to a bar was when Clinton was president, and it was a different time. We disagreed with each other, but you had pro Second Amendment Democrats and Republicans and independents. You could talk with each other, and what the worst thing you were arguing about is whether or not the Republicans should, impeach Clinton for doing something that everybody does, and the Republicans are saying, "Well, we do. It was in the Oval Office. That's our area." It was that kind of. But we walked away, and nobody fought, so it didn't matter. Today, you can't have any of that. If you disagree, you're an absolute enemy. We are a country divided. That is, I believe, unfortunately, in this situation, I'm white pilled in some areas. I'm black pilled on this. There's no coming around here. We might be able to get some people to change sides, but we are not going to unite again, ever. There's no way. I mean, I can't believe how bad it's gotten. And the reason we've gotten there, and it goes back to the elevator story that Evan mentioned, the misinformation. When I say something, okay, and again, we have to remember, back in our day, we were talking to each other, and maybe we could put post something in a newspaper. Everything we do now is live. So I think we might all be the media, basically. But the paid media, they are the biggest portrayers of misinformation. They are making people stupid, and they are using an agenda. They are absolutely Baghdad Bob. I see a spin. Hopefully, I'm still talking.
No, you're good.
And
we got
it's not us. Yeah, it's not us that are passing on misinformation. My opinion is my opinion. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Is that misinformation? No, because I'm not an authoritative source. The authoritative sources are the media. They are the only ones that can pass on misinformation. And we need to really identify that and pass that on and make sure people know that. As a citizen, you cannot be guilty of misinformation. As a media source, you can.
But here, just kind of getting into the whole liberty thing, but look at how that's been so twisted. And that wasn't part of the conversation. And maybe we don't want to get into too much detail on this, but, again, that, Section 230, you're either a publisher or you're a platform. Which one is it? We've got social media right now that is clearly acting as publishers, but wanting to be treated as platforms. When I get to censor what you say and how your reach and your, and all that kind of stuff, well, hang on, that's censorship, right? Well, then, so you're a publisher. Well, no, I'm not a publisher. Well, we're treating you like a platform, so you cannot be sued for to your point, Paul. Hey, I've got my opinion. I'm just a private citizen. I can talk about whatever I want, and I can listen to whatever I want, and I can say what I want. That doesn't hold. By no means in that scenario is any social media platform liable for what you're saying, because they're under Section 230. They're a platform, right? Everybody's got to be.
they shouldn't be liable for what you say. But
that's not what they're doing.
There can't be regulations to, to look. We need some regulations to make sure that they are not pushing baloney and censoring one side and not the other. It has to be free speech unless there is terrorist threats or stuff like that. If you say Joe Biden is a jerk that eats ice cream, you should be allowed to say that. If you say, I'm not going to say something else, but you say something that is a threat, you should then be reported. They should report you, not censor you. And I look at this honestly, a recent situation. I dropped off of Facebook long ago because I got harassing stuff from both sides during the Trump election. I said, I'm done with this. I just use this stuff to talk to my family. And I got these people that are arguing Trump and Hillary and all this other stuff. And it just got so weird. So I was like, I'm done. They're just trying to use me for an ad anyway. So recently, I tried to create a new account on Facebook for myself because there are groups that, outdoor and Evan, naturalist groups, right? My career has been 30 years in IT and information security. But when I got out of high school, I was a biology major. I did all science stuff. So I'm trying to get back into that. So I try to do naturalist stuff and they have Facebook groups. Well, I'm not on Facebook. So I try to do Facebook. When I first created my Facebook account, I didn't need to put a picture of my stinking face on there. So, I'm telling you, I went back and forth, walked back and forth. I was pouting like a child. I don't want to put my face up there. And I'm like, all right, well, it is me. So, okay. So I put my face picture up there. I submitted. You're blocked and you've submitted an appeal. If your appeal has been rejected, your account be in. They're trying to verify my account that I am who I am. They rejected me. I can't even create a Facebook account for myself. So I'm done with Facebook 100%. They rejected me, and I'm probably, they'll probably flag me here, whatever, but screw them. And any of that kind of stuff, they're done. I'm done with them. I can't communicate with people on Facebook, even though it's supposed to be a thing. Look, I don't want to use my last name, okay, because I don't want the harassment again. So you know who I am. You have my email address. You have verification of my last name and all that. I just don't want it posted publicly. They won't let me do it. Rejected it. So screw Facebook and all of their supporters.
So it's kind of funny. I just actually heard some people talking about Facebook earlier today, and I just kind of looked at them sideways, like, oh my God, is there a dinosaur over there? Like, who's talking about Facebook? Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm going to see a dinosaur in real life here, like somebody who's talking about Facebook. But so again, and I actually like this, and maybe let's just kind of go in this direction, because I know Evan's got some things to say about Paul. You just clearly said, some of you shared some of your personal thoughts, social media. And you kind of got a little bit of mine. Look, so kind of going into everything we've said about so far, we've talked about so far tonight, there are laws on the book, existing laws that if we just followed them and followed the nature of the law, and there's the letter of the law, spirit of the law, I get that kind of stuff. But when it comes to social media, that is the modern town square. And that's why we have, Section 230, or I think it's Section 230 is what it's called.
It's Section 230.
Yeah, 230, right. And again, but I know I'm right on this. It's like, a publisher, right? Or a platform. Which one are you going to be? And if you're a platform, that's free speech for everybody. That's what it's supposed to be. Probably why they hate Elon Musk right now. But instead, what we've just found out, and I had some articles on this again. So I only had a few articles, but I had 14 articles to post tonight. And one of them had to do exactly with this. I didn't know that we would say this. I got some other ones to pull up, but social media and our government has clearly been colluding to censor, to minimize, to ostracize, and to attack individuals who don't agree with them. Look what France just did. And I know we're not France, but somebody watching or listening to this might be from Europe. France is trying to, I think actually, I shouldn't say trying. They just passed a bill that if you say something that they deem is as medical misinformation, you'll be fined. And then there's a fine in prison terms. Like, we are entering into a global era of censorship and Big Brother. And there's clearly a game at foot here because our laws are clear and no one's been following our laws for a long time. And when it comes to social media, the laws are clear and the violations of the laws have been clear for anyone who wants to open their eyes and see it. Yet nothing is being done. The only thing that's being done is we're attacking the guy who's actually acting as a platform and letting people have free speech. Like, that's what we have happening right now. So we're in a very, very, very tenuous situation or time in the history of humanity right now, because if our freedom of speech goes away, well, what the hell? I mean, back to, Redbeard's, conversation. We don't want to rely on the second. We need to, like, the second supports the first. We need the first to exist. We don't ever want to go down the road of like relying on the second. So I'm going to turn it. That's my comment. I've got it. I'm going to turn it over to you guys. You guys respond as you see fit. All right, Paul, what do you got?
I just want to say that speculation, pure speculation. I was on Facebook. They did use facial recognition. They agreed to get rid of that stuff. They have facial recognition. They know who I am. They know who I supported. And then when they saw my face, they knew that they could link me right directly to my previous account and said, boom, rejected. Speculation. But I can't imagine why. Why would they flag me?
Because of something like that. And we already know that type of technology algorithm is already there. I mean, so I'm going to turn this over to Evan. I mean, I can speak, from Centerline Systems, my business side, and I can speak from my personal side. It's everything that you're talking about. I remember, so here, before I turn it over to Evan, I'll just give it a quick analogy. What is this, 8 years ago, when I'm starting Centerline Systems, Facebook was still big. I have a Facebook, and I probably still have a Facebook page, but I was almost immediately banned on Facebook, and I wasn't allowed to advertise. Well, I appealed it, and they just, they gave me their little, well, you violated our TOS. Okay, what's the TOS? You can't do this. I'm like, well, I don't do any of that stuff. Nope, denied. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you do it a little bit later and try again. And like, oh, no, you can't do this. And I'm like, why would I be on your platform if your quote unquote terms of service, there's the definition. I clearly don't do any of that. I don't sell guns. I don't sell ammo. What? Because some of my stuff is camouflage. So this is, in my humble opinion, this is where we've lost our liberty, because there should have been and I wish Jeremy was here because this is really his forte and he will do a better job of speaking about it. We as individuals, as members of a community, a county, a state, we need to do such a better job of electing people who are really going to go and represent us as the state. Think about all of your senators and your representatives that are in DC. How many of those people in America actually really represent us? Like, I almost think we could count that on less than two hands of politicians who actually truly give a shit about their constituents. They're there to make their money. Like Joe Biden's on the record. Again, like we said, when he was way back in the day when he was a senator, he was talking about, he wasn't getting paid like everybody else was getting paid. And he was like, I'm the most poor, member of Congress because I ain't getting paid like everybody else is getting paid. Like, the guy was basically saying, I'm for sale, buy me, like, I'll do what you want. And that is contrary to liberty. It's incumbent upon us, and I'll shut up and I'll bring it over to Evan and Paul. You guys can respond. It's incumbent upon us to start finding, and maybe it's up to us to start like stepping up and like, okay, I'm going to take, I volunteer. I'll run for, whatever that job is on the school board or county commission or whatever it is. But we have nothing to bitch about if we keep electing these idiots who keep going to Congress and then raping us in tax dollars and whatever the other case is. And then what do we expect was going to happen? Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell. I mean, come on, man. This is exactly what we deserve to get. So liberty, social media. There's not a single person in Congress. How many Republicans have you seen talking about how what's happening to Trump is so fucking wrong? And again, to Evan's point, you don't have to like Trump, but I do like due process and I like our legal system. I don't like any judge, district attorney, or anybody saying, no, he's guilty. We don't even have to run this trial. He's guilty. I mean, like that's kangaroo fucking court, banana republic shit
accept
right
that?
there.
Who would accept that? Who in their right mind accepts that? one
Apparently,
judge-
a shit ton of Americans are.
New York- I don't even-
Apparently, a shit ton of
I don't even have
Americans
to-
are, Paul.
New York, it's crazy. The media should be going ape shit, but they're not. They support it. Whatever.
Evan,
No, I think like you mentioned, like, joining the local, like, school board or, like local government. I think like even going further, like, I think, like, again, getting involved is really important. We all have the ability to get involved. And they're like, there's so many people that are like on the far extreme, both sides of things, want to go straight to either extreme measures or accusing people of going to extreme measures. And I don't think either one, we're nowhere near that point. I think we have so many things we can do. And a great example is Biden signed a bill. I don't know. He signed a bill last year. It was in 2023. You can look it up. I forget the actual name of the bill, but basically it pulled federal funding from schools that had any programs that had anything to do with deadly weapons.
Yep.
Basically, if you had a archery program for your school, you lost all federal funding. And my point is, like, there were a bunch of conservation groups, hunting conservation groups that were nonpartisan groups. So they're not Republican, they're not Democrat, they're not Libertarian. The whole purpose of the group is hunting and conservation. A bunch of those groups went, whoa, and they notified all of the constituents, everybody that was a member, anybody that joined, that paid their $25 a year dues. Everybody got an email saying, this is a bill that just passed. Here's a link. All you have to do is click the link and hit enter. And it's a pre-made message to go to your local representatives for your state. They literally did all the work, and a ton of people did it. And last I saw, that got struck down because so many different state governors sent messages saying, like, hey, listen, we're not going to support this because everybody in our state said no. And that was a thing where, like, whether or not, and I'm not even going to ascribe motives. I have my own personal feelings. I'm not going to go there. That might have been entirely out of being uneducated and not thinking things through that bill was passed. It might have been entirely malicious, but at the end of the day, a ton of people stood up and said, hey, knock it off. And they were all prompted by people from these groups. And there's tons of organizations and groups people can join that are involved in politics, but are not like joining any particular partisan group, that are bipartisan. And I think we should all be involved in one or two of those, even if it's not conservation. If conservation is your thing, I'm sure there's other stuff that has to do with, outdoor sports, legislation when it comes to schools. There's all these things you can do you don't have to join your political, politics for your local city council or anything like that. You can just pay $25 a year, get a cool sticker for your car, and get a quarterly magazine. And you know that you're looped in on stuff that affects you when it comes to that portion of your world.
And what's sad about what you just said, and that's why I just put this up too, though, is like, we've become so fucking lazy. I hate to say that. That's a slam and all. So I know you got to take a quick break, but I'll bring it over to me and Paul, but I'll bring it to Paul in a second. But that's exactly it. And so God bless, but that's what you have to do. You have to work double hard to make sure that whatever it is that you're trying to promote, which should just naturally compel people to be, to want to take action and want to, voice their concerns and want to appeal to their representatives. But that's not who we've become. I just saw some stupid thing this kind of correlates. It's a little bit different. Some big TikToker was talking about something over on TikTok and said, and because of some trend that was going there, people on TikTok were like paying attention to 5 to 10 minute videos. And the person said, thank you for bringing back our attention. And I'm just like, your attention span is 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, like, so I hate to say it, but so I see you shaking your head right there. That's what we've become. If you actually, and think about the other side of the equation, think about evil. Evil knows this. You think how much easier it is for them. Nobody in America, we've become so lazy.
And you guys.
Say again, Paul?
There's all kinds of cutting off and cutting out. It must be me.
Well, no, I don't think so, because I just saw it on my side too.
On my end, everything's smooth and clear on my end.
No, I just saw it on my side too. Just another one of those little hiccups, like what's going over on Black Scout all the time right now, right?
You must be talking about something weird.
Oh, yeah, we're saying something right, because we're getting shut down. Hey, Evan, if you got to take a quick break, do it. Paul and I can handle for a second, but I want to come back to you because I want to, if you guys don't mind, when you come back, let's segue it into the final part of this conversation tonight. And let's, again, focus on that social media side, because from whether it's from individuals who are just trying to express their perspectives or small business owners, because I kind of want people to hear your perspective on what just happened recently in the madness over on Instagram. You know, it affected me a little bit, like a month or two before I saw it happening in the knife world. And then now, and it's still going on. Excuse me. It's still going on in the knife world over there.
Oh, big time. Like
Yeah.
I don't need a break, by the way. I'm good for
I
another
thought,
while.
okay.
But
Yeah.
That
Well,
was
we're gonna
me.
probably hey, real quickly, we're gonna probably wrap this up in 15 then. So if you're good for
yeah,
another
so we're good. Yeah.
okay. I thought you said you had okay.
No, that wasn't
Oh.
me.
No,
Oh,
it
that was me, Paul. Oh shit.
Yeah, it was me. I took it, and then you left my screen blank, and I had to sneak in here.
Oh, well, hey, I'm sorry. I was just, you know how it is. I'm looking here and then I got to look, I thought it was Evan. So I was like, yeah, go, man, go. And then I saw you leave and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I guess.
Hey, you're like, Kevin, I know you need to take a break. And I'm like, you guys all trying to talk about something that you don't want me to hear? What's going on?
Hey, Paul, let's figure out how we can get Evan out of the chat for a couple seconds so we
It's
can talk
about to
about
get
him.
juicy.
Yeah.
I'm
Hey,
gonna,
I'm not sure if I
go
trust
now.
this
I'm gonna
guy.
leave this on.
I'm not sure if I trust this guy. Look at his beard. His beard just isn't up to the beard quality. But
hey, was that sexy when I talked in the mic a little
No.
bit?
No,
I didn't think.
no.
All right, hey,
Not at all.
okay. Friday night live. We're having a little bit of fun, but let's take it in let's take it across the line here at the very end. Let's talk a little bit. We kind of started getting into that social media, 230, platform publisher, but let's kind of talk about, because I know some people say, well, that's bullshit. And I see this on social media. Oh, you just got to work harder and do better. I'm like, no, the deck is being stacked against you. Like, like to Paul's point, and, and Evan, I've talked about this and I've got my own personal experiences. I got banned from advertising because I make gear that's camouflage, or there happened to have been a gun. Well, I make stuff that duck hunters and grouse hunters would like. Well, there's a shotgun, it wasn't even, it wasn't anything crazy. Right.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing right there that I kind of want to just address real quickly, but I'm going to leave it to you guys. I'm going to shut up here for the next 15 minutes.
Well, no,
you guys go with that. You know where I'm going with this. So
it's really funny. Cause like I've posted like a while back. Well, I think it was in the summer, actually. I posted a picture of, I have a 1911 and it's got stag grip, looks super cool. It's one of my daily, actually. Haha.
Hey, don't do it. Oh, there you go. Oh, nice.
Yeah. But anyway, carry it all the time. And but I took a picture of it alongside one of my knives, and it was one of my tactical theme knives. I don't carry it very often. It's more of my truck knife. It's always there. And posted a picture. It's got elk antler. I've got elk antler on my 1911. Everything's good. And I thought, well, Instagram's gonna throw all the crap out of this. And that got a ton of likes. It got like 280 likes, which is a lot for me. Like I've got going on 5,000 followers right now. If I get 100 likes in the photo, that's a pretty good like count. That actually did like way better than I thought I was going to. I thought, well, that's weird because they like to, throttle weird stuff. Anything that's not like that doesn't fit a narrative, and we all know what I'm talking about. It gets throttled and they don't get likes and things like that. It got a ton of likes. Shortly afterwards, one of my pictures of a knife, and it wasn't even a picture of like the whole profile. Like, and for example, it wasn't a profile shot of the knife. It was a shot of the knife like this, just showing like, well, hang on. Yeah,
Right there.
camera angles backwards, like that, showing
Yep.
like, basically the profile of the handle, the liners, things like that. You couldn't even see the blade in the picture, and they censored the photo, and they notified me that followers could see it, but it wasn't going to get recommended to non-followers and all this other stuff because it may violate community guidelines. Again, I had a picture of a 1911 with a stag antler handled tactical knife, like basically a Bowie, two weapons by some definition, side by side in a photo, very weapon centric photo, didn't get censored, didn't get throttled, and that one gets throttled. It made absolutely no sense. I also have somebody I follow. I'm not personal friends. I'd like to be at some point. He's the hunting chef. He'd post just nonstop, like just cooking cool stuff, bourbon glazed wild turkey and stuff like that. And everything's cooking. There's no pictures of guns, no pictures of knives. I'm not gonna say none, but like 99.999% of the stuff is all hunting, like stuff he's killed hunting, and it's now in a skillet. It's just in skillet form. And he's gotten throttled really hard. They actually censored a photo of his. That was a picture of a acorn squash, not an acorn squash, a summer squash in his garden because it said that it violated their nudity guidelines. And it was a squash. Like it wasn't even close to like being like a joke suggestive, nothing. It was a squash on the trellis. And it said that it violated nudity guidelines. Like they censor weird stuff. And some of us hit the appeal button, it goes through, and they say, sorry, our bad, the algorithm censored it. But I've got several knife maker buddies. I've got a ton of knife maker friends. It's just part of being in the industry who have had like, it shows 4 posts that are censored. They'll appeal all 4 and they'll say, our bad, all 4, we shouldn't have censored them. And then it'll show 4 more. And it'll be the next 4 posts. And they'll appeal those and it'll show the next 4 posts. And they've done it for the last 2 years. Every single day they log in and appeal, and then it goes down to the next 4. And they never get out of that stink. And it's really stinking weird. And I'm not even political on my social media. I've posted nothing political when it comes to my business, nothing at all. So they can't ever accuse me of being politically biased. I own a couple AR-15s, for example. I'm not an AR-15 guy. Like, I'm all for people being able
Evan,
to own them.
just to kind of rein you in, it has nothing to do with your politics, and I'm going to turn this over to Paul.
but real quick, let me finish my thought, and then absolutely go to Paul. I'm like, when it comes to firearms, I'm as libertarian as it gets, but I just don't care for AR-15s. I have a couple just because people wanted to say they were illegal, so I'm like, screw you, and I got a couple. But my taste when it comes to firearms is like traditional walnut and blued steel, big bore, dangerous
bolt
game
action.
rifles. Bolt action, dangerous game rifles, like the stuff you use for elephants. That's my thing. So if you see pictures of guns, you see me on like at the range, I'm shooting.
Well, hang on,
stuff that
especially if you're
shoulder.
slow down, especially if you're running down wild boar, you better have a big ass game.
Oh,
fucking,
come on.
Yeah, come on,
a
man.
Real man doesn't use a gun. A real man uses a knife, right?
That's right. That is 100% correct. You are correct.
But
your backup buddy has got a really high caliber chamber. He ain't got no AI platform for that thing.
Yeah. Well, jokes on you. Like none of them carry guns. When we have dogs, we don't run guns at all because you can hurt the dog. Okay. But like, but being serious, like, well, that was serious. But getting back on topic, like. Almost everybody I know that's for gun control. Like I know several people that are super liberal, left-leaning, liberal by the modern standard, not traditional liberal, that are super pro gun control. They're like, I don't have a problem with you having a safari rifle. I don't have a problem with you having a walnut, stocked blued rifle for deer. I just don't like those AR-15s. They have 99% of people that are gun control, like pro gun control, have no problem with my safari rifles. So like, and I'm not saying that I agree with them. It's anything I post is traditional stuff. So it's not that there's anything you could draw out of any of my posts that shows my political standing. It's just knives. Anything that's weapon based could be, it's construed. I've had kitchen knife pictures.
Well, so this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm slowing you down. So, it doesn't matter. Like, I hate to say this, and I'm not, it's not, you're wrong. I think
you're good.
I'm just trying to interject my opinion here, bringing it to Paul to get his thoughts on before he rubs his eyes raw. But no,
I've been working all day. My eyes have been staring at the screen. I'm tired.
You're just crying. You're just crying because like you've never stabbed a pig in the heart with a knife and eaten it for dinner that night. But like you said, a serious thing. Again, Evan, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just simply saying that I personally believe that the like you mentioned the cooking guy. When I've done my own hunting videos on centerline systems or cooking things, whamp, 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 whamp. They shut the F down. It's so obvious to get shadows banned. So that's all I'm trying to say. I think anybody who's out there promoting like a real traditional family or Christian value, you don't have to believe in Christ, but like, dude, real Muslims have a code of ethics they live by. Buddhists have a code of ethics. Jews have a code. But there's certain categories. If you're doing something that goes against the narrative, and the narrative is to break away the family unit and be emboldened to government. That's my humble opinion. I've got a right to say it. So it doesn't matter. You're not out there with an AR, but you're doing something with a knife. Well, that's scary. The guy you're talking about, like, and I would love to follow that guy, like, because I would love to learn some great recipes. Nope, can't have that because you're being independent and you're not getting stuff from the government controlled grocery store. I think it's really more of that. I personally think we are seeing such I'm going to call it incestuous. It's like a brother and a sister having sex with it. The government and media are in bed with each other right now. It's incestuous. It just plain and simple is, and it's designed to continue to make the rifts where the rifts need to be possible, convince everybody that you're the downtrodden and the government's here to save you. I think it's really, social media is on board, and it's one of the biggest evils. As Redbeard said, though, it's a great positive, like what we're doing right now and what, bringing people together and trying to talk about this stuff. But it is becoming more and more difficult to get these messages out unless you are already standing like Joe Rogan with, they can't, Joe Rogan's almost too big to
He's
stop
Hollywood.
right now. But
He's
but
Hollywood.
they
They don't go after Hollywood.
But they
Yeah.
have tried going after Joe Rogan. So
Now they
They
do.
have tried. They have
BCP,
tried.
yeah, BCP.
Sorry.
No, I
Joe,
actually, you
Joe
just, sorry.
Rogan gets a. Go ahead, Evan.
Well, real quick, you actually gave me an idea recently. And we have a huge cicada hatch that's going to happen this year for the first time since like 1817. 2 different massive hatches of cicadas happen.
Yep,
at the same
double.
time.
It's double this year, right? Oh my God!
Now,
What did you just do? Oh shit! Oh my God! Seriously,
yes,
Oh,
it happened again.
Squimby is going to
Anyway.
be so jealous. Somebody else has
Oh.
the power. It's not just Steven. Do it again. Do it again.
It's an iPad, isn't it?
Are you on? Yeah. Are you on iPad?
I'm on an iPhone.
Okay, it's something with an iPhone.
Same
Whatever
thing.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Oh, nice. Nice. That's
so,
awesome.
All right, see, you,
All right, so
you
hang
gave
on,
me an,
hang on, go with me.
All right.
So it's 2. We got the 2. We got
Two
it's a
broods.
double. It's a double. Oh God, that is so
Broods.
awesome when you do it. It's so funny. I almost want to get an
I have a
iPhone just for
superpower.
that.
Oh,
But back to the
All right, so
cicada thing,
anyway,
though. Yeah,
all right,
because
so
it's
there's
going to be a
all these
dual breed
cicada-
this year.
so
Yep.
all these cicadas are coming out, and there's been a current push for getting away from beef protein and eating insect protein in our diets.
Yep.
Now, I've eaten cicadas. I'm an old school. I'm a Christian. I think that like in Genesis, God looked at his creation, said it was good. I take it literal, whether or not people think that's, it's partially a joke, partially serious. I've eaten coyote, I've eaten raccoon, I've eaten groundhog, I've eaten all kinds of things.
Hey, all
It's
this
all
stuff that's here
delicious.
for us. Yeah, it's
When-
yeah. There's
you-
nothing
when
wrong
you
with
bread
eating
it-
grubs and yeah, no.
I don't
But
look at a
that's not.
groundhog and I don't look at a groundhog and think I want to eat that. But once it's been skinned and deep fried and breaded, I get hungry. So
Yeah, and
I-
maybe boiled for like 3 days, and then something like that. Whatever.
I've got some really good groundhog recipes if you ever want them. But anyway, aside
Hey,
from the point,
Evan, none of us want them. None of us
No.
want
I-
those
I
groundhog
imagine.
recipes.
not everybody's as open-minded about food as me. But anyway, this year I think I'm gonna get a picture of a bunch of cicadas in a bowl and be like, guys, I've decided I'm gonna get a little more green and sustainable about my cooking. Insects are more sustainable protein than beef, or so I'm told. I'm gonna have a picture of like the cicadas, and then the next picture, if you swipe, is gonna be a picture of filet mignon in the skillet. It's not
Oh,
even
no,
gonna be
no.
protein.
Dude,
And
a
I'm
great
gonna
piece of like
see-
that venison or that boar that you just harvested.
No,
Oh my God. With
When I
some
say-
potatoes and carrots or some shit like that. Oh
well,
my
when I
God.
say filet mignon, I honestly mean backstrap. It's
Okay, I thought
rare.
that's
Rare
what
in
you
the
meant.
middle,
Yeah,
a
there
nice
you go.
crust on the outside, rare in the middle, seasoned with black pepper, and then maybe some like skillet seared Brussels sprouts and bacon
But how
grease.
many years has it
Um,
been since you had those? So you're gonna die because you have two
no.
broods coming out now, and you're gonna eat those 2 broods this year. But they're not coming back for 17, 20 years, 50 years, whatever it is. You can't live off this.
Hey, you underestimate how good I am at catching bugs and how big my freezer is.
Well,
But
and hang on,
besides that point-
and let's not forget, you could freeze dry them, you could dehydrate them, and you could can them. So come on, Paul.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Listen,
Come on, Paul.
I'm just saying,
Come on,
when you
man.
see me eating Skittles at the park, I'm probably not eating Skittles. I'm probably eating powdered bugs. Protein.
This whole, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm serious, and I love it. This whole fucking podcast night has gone so off the rails. I guess this
That's
is
how I
what's
live,
gonna
man.
happen sometimes, but you know, you know what? Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm gonna shut up here, but I'm just gonna admit my own selfish bias. Dude, you started talking about the hunting stuff, you know, and I asked you, you know, like, and then I hear your story, and I'm just like, oh, and then I dodged away, and he missed me by this much, and then I stabbed him in the heart. I'm just like, that's when I went and grabbed because I've never used that in anger, but that's what I got it for. That's what I got my bow for. I was just like, you know, I'm not gay, but like, I wonder if I could hang out with Evan a little bit more, you know, like,
Well,
you know.
hey, like, listen, like, legit
Alright.
offer.
Paul just walked away. Hey, Paul, come back, man. We're just joking, dude.
Legit, like, no, Mark, like, legit in a non-gay thing. Next year, like this year, I'm booked up. Next year, would you like to come pig hunting with me? I'll make you a knife.
Oh, hell yeah. No. I'm here to tell you look, you know, we never know what, you know, tomorrow's going to bring. We can't predict the future, but I'm here to tell you, if there's a way we can work that out, I'm in. So I would love to do that. You know, so here now, God dang it. I wish you wouldn't ask me that right now in the live stream. So I don't want to take too much time. I'll just say this real quickly. My personal, goal, what I want as a business, Centerline Systems. I want to get to that point where one of my primary functions as the owner of the business is what, you already know what I'm saying? You're going to say, or did I just say something wrong? What did I say?
That was a great Freudian slip.
What did I say?
That's why I'm taking it. So,
What did I say?
Nothing at all.
You
Don't
said
worry
the F word. Just keep going.
Did I say the F word?
about it.
One of my functions? Did I say okay?
Unintentional.
Whatever. But one of my primary, what I want to have, if I could, as a goal, like, I will think I'm an incredibly lucky man if I can pull this off as the owner of a business. If I can, like, 2 times a year, go out with like you, Evan, or other people from other places and go hunting for a week, bring my gear, videotape, you know, and then go and spend time with other people who are, you know, conservationists, who enjoy this, who believe in nature, and then go and harvest an animal and have that joy in that community of doing that together. And then, you know, obviously, you know, shooting some videos and gear things. Dude, I will be the luckiest man in the world if I can pull that off. That's all I'm looking for as a business. I just want to be able to give a good job, good salary, great quality products to people. And then twice a year, I get to go hunting with other people for a week or so at a time. That would be awesome.
Thanks, straight.
Dude, I'm going to hold you to that. I'm serious. I'm holding you to that.
Oh, I mean it. I meant it, man. It's good marketing for me. Pictures of more people with
damn right.
critters than my knife.
And so this year, and I think I said this to you a couple of years ago, and then I had all my ailments that happened. So just kind of like, I guess, just giving you like, you know, a full confession here. No one wanted to jump on that one. You guys laughed at when I said something about functionality or whatever, but no one wanted to do a full confession joke.
Waiting,
but
we're waiting for the actual confession, then the joke.
Right. Right.
So my confession
We're waiting.
is,
We're waiting.
like,
for the hook.
I have that little knife of yours, and I'm here. I love that thing, and I told you, like, so when you're reaching up, and I don't want to get too graphic, and I don't know who's watching or who's going to watch it, but, like, you know, when you're field dressing an animal, like, well, you've got to process the animal, and I process my own animals. Evan has a really great small knife that I've always wanted to use, because I always thought, because, you know, your finger, you could actually, the size of the knife, you could plant it and it would be more like running your finger down through, you know, if you're separating the hide or if you're separating, you know, certain sections of the animal. And Evan, I think I talked to you about this about like 4 years ago. And I just never had a chance to do it, because then my back went out, and then my hip, you know, blah, 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 blah. But so I never had a chance, because I've been absent venison for a couple of years now. And that's I hate to admit this on a live stream, but that's a sad thing to say. But yeah, I haven't been able to harvest a deer in probably 3 years now, 3 years. So, but I like that small, I don't know if you remember it. It's a really small, dude, this was, that's it right there. Seriously, I think that knife is so freaking sharp, and it fits so nicely in your hand. I just always imagine reaching up into the chest cavity, or again, you're talking about back straps or the loins and stuff. I'm just like, dude, I think that thing would be awesome, and I've never been able to put it into use because I had my own issues going on, and I just never was able to capitalize on it. But I still have that. I have that damn knife, man. So yeah, I'll join you next year. If I don't get to use it this year, then I'll join you next year. I may not. I may rely on this thing.
Well, hey,
You can,
to be
you
fair,
you can do the knife. I'll stand away by about 10 feet.
To be fair, that's the one condition, though. If you come along, like, I will supply you with a knife. I will make you a harpy, which is all I are named after birds. I'll make you a harpy on the house. You just gotta
Paul, hey, hold that up a second, because I don't think Paul was here at the beginning. Hold that up again a second. Yeah, there you go. Paul, look at that damn thing. That's Evan. I'm serious. I got to give you props here, sir, as a maker, a creator. So again, this is the whole Liberty thing. Dude, that's got like it to me, it kind of looks like a historical kind of Bowie knife, but also on the same note, very different. And I love, especially, like your attention to detail on where you don't want your fingers to slip and, because you'll cut yourself, and it looks like you got a really nice pommel, that grip. And people might look at that and say, well, that's a non-traditional knife grip. Well, put your hands around that. And again, even on that little, see, look at how that's what's really cool. That's what I really like about your designs. I guess we'll just kind of take it out on this kind of stuff. It really does provide a really nice grip and feature that's going to have that normal functionality of how you're going to actually grab something, right?
Absolutely.
This is just my little beard comb, but imagine this is what you normally see, well, okay, that's just, what is that? Yours, no, it's that, and it makes sense, and it gives you more viability. It gives you more stability, which then therefore equals more efficiency or more, lethality, depending on how you're looking at it, especially if you're trying to dodge a goddamn giant 250-pound boar,
yeah.
In
the case of the harpy, yeah, it's a weapon. Like that's one of the only knives I make that I count as a weapon, not a tool.
All right. Hey, we've totally gone so off track in this podcast, and I love it. But let's bring it over to Paul. Paul, you've done such a great job of staying awake. I don't know. It looks like you got a bunch of notes. This was not our normal live stream, but it is what it is, right?
I love it. And I love the fact that I prepared all day, Mark, for something you told me to do, and we have no time to cover it. That's fine.
No, we do. I'm giving you the chance. I'm giving you the chance to take us out.
It has to fit in. So what I would say is,
all right,
and I'm messing with you, but the as far as the conversations that have gone on tonight, one thing that Redbeard said was about universities and letting people in and all that. They're letting people into those universities to get these high-level degrees from high-level universities so that they can mold them, and they will eventually put them in the court systems. And that's what, again, you say George Soros, okay, you're already flagged. George Soros is putting all these attorneys in there. Well, guess what they are? They're a bunch of molded law students that went through a woke school, and that's what's going on right now. They're not, the college education is,
sorry.
If you, that's fine.
I was trying to prep. I know
you prepped. It was fitting.
He's already shoving us out the door.
It's over because they are totally, they're putting in the worst people. The best universities in our history are producing the worst graduates. Not all of them. Obviously, we know some that have graduated from there. And I don't want to judge everyone by that, but they got a few going through there, a lot of them. And they're going to be distributed throughout the United States. And they already have. I mean, they've wrecked our entire, judicial system up to the Supreme Court at this point with, I'm not a biologist lady, her. But the one thing I wanted to say back to, because, this episode and the one note I missed was as far as having to pay for a hunting license. And Evan really, kind of opened my eyes a little bit there, because I always thought, why do I need a license to hunt on my own land and feed myself? Well, I'm ethical. I'm not going to kill stuff and sell it and steal from anything else that comes around. I'm not going to, I'm going to kill what I need to eat. So what Evan said really does resonate with me in the sense that, yeah, a lot of people won't do that. Most people won't do that, honestly. They're not honest people. So we do need regulations in there. And as a libertarian, for him to say that is really, it makes a lot of sense because, libertarians don't typically want regulations on things. So I really appreciate that. And I still don't think I should have to have a fishing license to fish on a creek that runs through my property, but I get it. And it's not that expensive. It's cheap, and the government wants their money, and they pay for the game commission to take care of the land and all that stuff. So
if I can,
I'm fine with it.
Only
go ahead.
If I can have literally one thing, and I'll let you get back to your tangent, or not tangent, but like your
No,
stream
it
of
is.
thought.
It is.
No. I tangent. I don't like the connotation of tangent because that sounds
It's
negative.
all right.
Your stream of thought, because
Yeah.
I love it. There is a connotation that like the government wants money for me for my hunting license or fishing license. And you can look this up. Don't take my word for it, but that is the one thing, the one tax, if you will, that is untouchable by 95% of the government. It literally only goes to fishing game for conservation purposes. For years, like decades, the rest of the federal government has tried to find ways to get access to that money because it's billions of dollars a year or millions of dollars a year. I don't know if it touches billions or not. It's a lot between all the states as far as like hunting licenses, tags. Locally, like a fishing license might be $20. But if you're non-resident, like a hunting license, I went for elk last year and it was almost $1,000 for a tag and a license. That's a lot of money. And there's a lot of people that go to Colorado for elk, for example. And that is money that the federal government has been trying for a very long time to get access to, and they can't. It just goes to conservation.
And
so
that's good.
that is a small constellation. It is nearly bulletproof, and it's not accessible to the rest of the government. It's just conservation.
And
That's
That's all I wanted to say. Have at it.
No, and a great point. Bringing it back to BCP, but I feel like I need to speak for Redbeard here because I know what he would say. Which the bottom line is like the federal government should not have access to any of that money at all. That's the state's revenue, right? So again, and then Paul, to your point, libertarian, like I think I'm fiscally conservative. Dude, the federal government needs to be drawn the F down. We don't need to be putting money. So here, I don't know if I have it. Well, actually, it's one of the, again, I had 14 different articles. It's about Argentina. He in 1 month, he's already like suddenly made a surplus. He's saving money for the country. You start cutting away all this bureaucratic bullshit, all this excess government, and this is just another form of it. Why does the feds, Evan, to your point, why do they want that money? Because they want that money, right? Plain and simple.
Yep.
And then that's just going to steamroll and go and everything. That's liberty right there. Stop that. Forget that. If the state or the conservation corps, the conservation side of our, again, whatever, DNR, Department of Natural Resources, I'm okay with that kind of stuff. I'm not really necessarily okay with a lot of licensing, but because just like I'm paying taxes and they're not going towards my roads and not, they're going to other bullshit things I don't support. So I'm okay with what you just said right there, guys. But I know Jeremy would have a huge stink about this, and I think he's absolutely right. We are not in control of where our tax dollars and our monies are being spent. And therefore, well, then, just like Joe Biden said, hey, I don't give a shit what the Supreme Court said. I'm just going to forgive all these loans. Well, where do you think that money comes from? We just now paid for a bunch of people who went to college.
That's the one reason. That's the reason why the conservation thing is one of the few things that I won't complain about. Because between conservation tags, all the tags and licenses are untouchable by feds. Also, there's I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Pittman-Robertson Act. The Pittman-Robertson Act is a thing that sportsmen actually went to the feds and said, we would like there to be a tax, which never happens. Like people never say we want to pay more money. And it was proposed by sportsmen. And basically all firearms, ammunition, and anything adjacent. Basically, I forget what it is. It's like 1% or a tenth of 1%. It's a very small tax on all of those things. And you can look it up. Don't take my word for it. Basically, hunters and fishermen lobbied, I think it was specifically hunters, lobbied for all hunting and shooting gear to have a new tax. And I wish I had my numbers in front of me, but like I want to say it was in the 60s or 70s we passed this. And basically that tax goes specifically to conservation, and that money goes only to the acquisition of new public land from like lands available, buying it and making it available to the public for hunting, and to open up access for things. So like say there's a block of land that's blocked in by private land, and it's public, but all the private landowners are like, nope, you can't have access. And so it's their own little private honey hole, even though the public owns it, everybody pays for it, nobody can have access.
Right.
The Pittman Robertson access or project pays for that and pays for access to rivers and things like that. But that's
so it's
something
creating
that we-
easeways and easements and
It's-
opening.
it's something-
Not owned by the
it's
feds,
something
right?
that we as hunters decided we wanted to do. And that is another tax revenue service that the feds have been trying for years to find a way to dip into. And they're absolutely pissed because it's not like Social Security where they can be like, we'll take a little bit of that, we'll give it back. We're never giving it back.
Never gonna get it back.
They can't do that. They can't do that with the Pittman Robertson Act and with hunting licenses. So
Yeah,
that's one of those things. I
Jeremy.
don't like taxes. I don't like giving any money to the feds if I can help it. That's why I have a CPA. That's why you have a CPA, Mark. We have a CPA so we can give the least amount required. And if you don't, there's a word for that. It's stupid. You're dumb if you don't. Nobody wants to give their money away, right? That's one of the few things that like hunters and sportsmen have advocated for because it's bulletproof, because it only goes to fueling the thing we love. So again, not picking on anybody, not saying anybody's wrong, but that's one of the few things I'll stand up for.
Does it?
All right.
I'll shut up.
How
I'll
does
shut
that
up. Sorry.
fit in- How does that? Speaking for Jeremy, how does that fit in with the BLM, with land management?
Well, no, hang on. Hang on. Sorry. I'm gonna interject and exercise my my constitutional rights as the quarterback here, because we're at 2 hours and 15 minutes. And again, this is the problem with this podcast. I mean, and BCP knows this, Evan. I don't think I've said this to you, but like, dude, we bring on like everybody who's been on. They're just such great people. You guys are all just great people. This is more fun
I
than, to
appreciate
me.
it.
This is way more fun than going to a bar any day of the week. We could sit and talk for hours, but let's kind of wrap it up. Let's keep it more manageable and digestible. I've already, so this is our first week of trying Jeremy's new program, and we've already broken the rules on both of our podcasts. So we've already gone over. So I don't know, Jeremy's new rules kind of suck, I guess, but I like his idea, and we're going to try to do that. So how about we just start kind of wrapping this up? I want to give both of you guys final comments. I'm done talking. My outro is you already see what it's going to be. It's going to be Spartacus. Paul, God bless you, sir. You came on and then you came in the middle of a shit show, and you've kind of gone along in your own little canoe on the shit river. And I really appreciate that. But let's give you a little bit of some final comments, and we'll bring it over to Evan, and then we'll do a little Spartacus as our outro.
Yeah. So if we're talking about liberty in general,
Yep, Liberty. Yep.
liberty in general, just pay attention. My whole conversation tonight was going to be about information security breaches and stuff. So just know that while everyone was excuse me, was distracted by the AT&T outage, because why? You have phones. Everybody has phones. If you can't use your phone, you go crazy. Oh, the world's ending. At the same time, the day before, a major prescription company provider was hacked through a cybersecurity attack, and it shut down prescriptions being distributed on the same day that the AT&T cyber attack occurred. A lot of people think that they are one and the same. They're not. I can say that from just a research perspective. Is it possible? Absolutely. Anything's possible. But what I will tell you is there are more than 2,000 cyber attacks every day. The only ones that are presented to you are the ones for big corporations and big companies, big impact. So just be aware that, protect yourself when it comes to that stuff. Protect your identity. Don't use stupid passwords. Use password managers, all that kind of stuff. but know that, you know, a major, seriously, this look into the because I won't call out a company here live. I'm going to get in trouble, but look into that prescription company and that insurance provider that was hacked, that shut down their services, that caused people to not be able to get their prescriptions for a day. It has nothing to do with AT&T. You know, conspiracy says, okay, well, you know, AT&T was a distraction for this, whatever. I can explain the AT&T thing. In summary, I have a bunch of notes here. There's no need to save them. It was an update or a software update in AT&T that caused that outage. Why were other people reporting outages? Because they were trying to contact AT&T. Look, is it still possible that there was a hack? Absolutely. But the one thing I want to say is it was not a solar flare, because AT&T and Verizon share towers. They share the towers, but the network equipment on those towers are independently owned. So a solar flare would have equally impacted Verizon and AT&T.
Hey, I just got to throw this in there real quickly. I don't want to go off point in this. So to your point, I mean, there's been a lot of speculation as to what happened. You know, look, we are in a solar maximus right now. So, but again, if you were a smart enemy, you would use this known environment, like we're in a solar maximus, as a potential camouflage for what you're trying to do. If it's a cyber attack, to what you're saying, Paul, you know, I would argue that, you know, so again, I'm thinking from my personal background, you know, if I do something to you, right? So there's clandestine and covert, right? Clandestine, you're never going to know that I ever did it to you. That's clandestine. Covert, you don't know I'm doing it to you, but once the act has been, you know, affected upon you, you're now going to know that somebody just did this to you. In either of those cases, clandestine or covert, you got to ask yourself, all of the resources that you needed to expend to either clandestinely or covertly to get to this point, what was the end result? Was it worth all of the effort to get there? I would argue in this case, that wasn't it, unless this is an internal job. And I'll save that for another podcast. Matter of fact, Paul, let's just keep your notes on this, because this goes into the war room for next week. Because I kind of starting to look at this a little differently, you know, because it could be a false flag type of thing. And I'm just going to shut my mouth there, because I don't think the cost benefit analysis is there for a foreign entity to have. You're going to expend all those resources and you're going to get busted, and all of that, everything you did is now, it was covert. Now it's overt. Now everybody knows what you did, and all of those techniques, unless you're really smart, because you want people to learn about this, because you're really doing something else over here. And a smart enemy would do that, but that takes up, and Paul can speak to this way more than me, but that takes up a shit ton of resources and energy and personnel and computing skills and all that kind of crap. So, but that's a great thing. But no matter what it was, bringing it back over to Evan, I think, and I said this the other day in my live stream, you know, for one of our products over in Centerline Systems, no matter what it was, it goes to everything that we kind of went down the rabbit hole tonight with Evan. You better learn, you better get outside and get some gear and refresh, knock off the cobwebs, refresh your old skills, learn some new ones. If nothing else, this was that, wow, you just dodged a bullet, but you better get out there and learn how to make a fire, you know, make a shelter, fish, hunt, you know, all of these things. You better, if there ever was, in my opinion, and that's what you, liberty speaking, that's what you should be doing anyway. You and your whole family, not just men, women, your sons, your kid, your daughters. This is what we all should be doing anyway. So I don't know. I didn't mean to poo-poo that down at the end. But I guess I'm just selfishly saying, like, you know, you got to get outside. You got to remind yourself, and if you don't know how to do it, and not that bullshit. I watched a YouTube video. You've got to get outside and do this kind of crap. And Evan, I see you laughing, but that's why it's great to have you on. You know, I'm thinking about a bunch of other people on social media who I kind of follow and I've talked to. You know, Shane Coffey's another one. Like, dude, you got to get outside and do this stuff. And I don't care if it's even in your backyard. Dude, go in your backyard and practice these skills and teach these skills to your kids. That's way better than never practicing or teaching them the skills at all. I mean, because whether it was a solar flare, a coronal mass ejection, an EMP, a nuclear device, set off in the stratosphere, an EMP type of event, a direct nuclear war, zombie apocalypse, whatever the F it was, cyber attack. Dude, if nothing else, that should have woke people up and realized, man, I don't know the first thing about processing my own game or my own, how can I forage for food? Do I even know how to raise crops? What am I going to do when there's no more electricity and now the toilet doesn't work? Well, if you got access to a water source, your toilet will work all day long. But how many people even know that stuff? And then my final comment, I'll shut up, is I just remember this was about 7 years ago. Going to throw, and if this person watches it, it's a local person, somebody I know. If they watch it, they'll know, and I'm giving them a hard time. But we had this, we don't have tornadoes here, but we have straight line winds, and it knocked down trees all over. And there was people who were without power for like 7 to 10 days. And I should have been smart, and because I've had like 3 chainsaws at that time, I was healthy. I should have just went around and just like cut trees out of people's driveways and I would have made a shit ton of money. But I had somebody called me up one day. It's like, oh, dude, I'm so hungry. And I'm like, why are you hungry, man? Just eat some food. Like, I don't have any power. I'm like, dude, you have a gas stove. I don't have any power. I'm like, turn the stove, light a match. It'll light the gas and then cook some food. Like, what? It's just that kind of shit. We don't know what, yeah, Evan, thank you. But seriously, we don't know what we don't know. And everybody has to start someplace. And I'm here to tell you, you just drop your head, like, I guarantee if we pose that question to everybody in America, I bet 80% would know that it's a gas stove. Just turn it on and light a match and it would work. Because they turn it on and the pilot light does everything for them. I'm serious. I'm not even joking. So to that point, liberty, freedom, what Paul's comment was, dude, we all have to use these events to take a step back and say, what's really important? Well, my liberty is important, right? Evan's right to go out and like process, because that's another encroachment, and we'll save that for another time. There are states and evil people who somehow have been elected to like represent the people who don't want you to be able to go do what you're doing. They don't want you to hunt and don't want you to harvest game. They don't want you to have your own well or an outhouse or your own greenhouse. I mean, maybe that's why we kind of went down this whole little thing about hunting tonight, because it is so important and it teaches you so much about being free and the liberty that the big God gives. Matter of fact, I'll just end it on this and I'm going to shut up. I now see some people are talking about that only crazy Christians think that God has granted us these rights. Like that's their new thing. Christians don't believe that. Only Christian fundamentalists believe this.
I'll be right back. Right. I'm going to set this down.
Right, let's bring it over to BCP anyway. All right, Paul.
Yeah. So I think that. Yeah,
I love how you laugh.
Yeah, so well, I used up all my notes unless I want to go deeper into the confusion of the so again, like you mentioned, Mark, honestly, there could be physical damage that was done to individual towers by employees or by let's say nefarious people. That's the fourth option. So we had a solar flare for those. We had a hack. We have a misconfiguration, which is the update, which I believe is true. Honestly, I think most information security people at this point are agreeing with that based on all the evidence. The physical damage could have occurred.
Just to throw this out there so you kind of are proud about me. Like, that's actually what I kind of thought as well. I was like, no, it's probably some kind of weird system software update, because look at how it didn't affect everybody the same way. And half these people are sharing the same towers and stuff. So, I didn't think it was, but the Solar Maximus, I'm sorry, continue, sir.
No,
I just thought you would be proud of me for thinking almost like you.
No, you're great. I thought that you're awesome, Mark. We've had no, so it is possible to have had an internal attack and physical damage to individual towers, but honestly, AT&T and Verizon do share towers. So if they were going to attack all of the transformers, I'm sorry, the transmitters, they would have probably hit both of them. And Verizon was, and if you look at what's called down detector, it's a good first reference, but not 100% because everybody was reporting being down. But were they actually down? No, they weren't. And after the research occurred, would I trust? Oh yeah, the FBI is involved. They're going to do that. And no, not at all. If anything, if they came back and said, "Well, it's absolutely just a misconfiguration," I might change my mind because of the state that they're in right now. I don't trust them at all. But I do believe it was somebody that applied a patch. I've seen it a number of times where you'll see down companies can't get out to the internet and they're major. The company I work for, other companies, big Fortune 100 companies, can't get out to the internet. And it's because of a misconfiguration of one of their security service providers. It has happened. I've seen it. And so it could be that's a similar situation here. It's just a bad update. They updated something. And it really does fit in because they typically do those at night. So people started noticing it on the East Coast around 3, 4 in the morning. Some people are crazy. They get up, they start working that early. Whatever. You do it, you do you, right? But then it started kicking in around 9 a.m. That's when the real people start working. And that's when the reporting numbers started going up. So yeah, you don't, and I did think about that. Would AT&T do an update in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day? They would absolutely not do that, but they may have done it at midnight and it didn't get detected until 9 a.m. So I'm done with that. And I think that, I do believe, honestly, and I'll buy him a lot of stuff. I won't buy anything, actually, I should say. I do full research. In this case, I fully believe that it was a misconfiguration issue by AT&T employees that caused that outage, and other people couldn't contact AT&T people.
Okay, so let's seriously. I mean, because this is such a great conversation. So next week is the war room. I don't want to get ahead of Jeremy. He'll introduce what the war room is going to be, but that's what you're saying right now. And I know you can't do Tuesday, but a week from now, when we do the follow up, the live stream, then you already did your notes and your research, and I apologize. We're kind of you didn't really get a lot of airtime here tonight, but let's just bring that up. Let's bring that up next Friday, because I think that's going to be worth, because even if we found out that you are correct and it was really this or it was that or whatever, there's still going to be doubt in everybody's mind. Right. And there just is. So, and I think that's something that fits a little bit more into next week. And then bringing it over to Evan. So again, for whoever watches or listens to this video, we went off a little off the rails tonight, and that's the way this podcast is designed. We're not trying to control a conversation. This isn't, hey, Evan, here's the 3 questions we're going to ask you, or hey, Paul, here's the 2 things I want you to say. It just kind of takes its own natural course, just like nature does. So let's bring it over to Evan. Kind of final comments, wherever you want to go, whether it's the hunting aspect, the liberty aspect, or a response to BCP and say, Paul, I don't think it was, an AT&T or an internal issue. I do think it was something else. Wherever you want to go. Final comments here, sir.
I won't do that. I'm just some dumb hillbilly that lives in the hill country of Appalachia, and I eat critters. So,
so you and Paul seem like you must be brothers or cousins then. Paul doesn't even have cell service. I mean, shit.
Well, I never have cell service, but that's just because of where I live. But no, so my thing would be it's Liberty Week, right? If y'all want to be free, y'all want to have freedom, you want to be that's self-sufficient. If you don't have a chest freezer, buy one. I think everybody should have a chest freezer. You said
serious question. Chest or stand up? I've got a stand up freezer.
Chest.
You like chest freezers?
I have both. Chest stand up are easier for organization, but you cannot beat a chest freezer for the amount of capacity you can hold. A 9
So let me
cubic
just
foot
ask you a
chest
quick
freezer-
question. Sorry to interrupt your flow because you mentioned this, and this is selfishly, hey, it's my podcast. So I kind of agree with you. I think if I get a chest freezer, it would be specifically for like my wild game. Like for example, like, here's my my cow or my pig or my venison or something like that. But my stand-up freezer, it's so much easier to organize, but you gotta seriously, maybe somebody might be concerned about that or thought about
No,
because if you're just going to
what-
start off, a chest freezer isn't the place to start. It's a stand-up, in my opinion.
So I disagree, but what I would say is buy a chest freezer.
Okay.
Go to Walmart and get chalkboard paint. Get a quart of chalkboard paint. Take some 220 grit sandpaper, scuff the living hell out of the top of it, and paint the whole top in chalkboard paint. When you put a deer in there,
Oh, I see what you're doing.
when you butchered your deer, write down how many 1 pound packages, put hash marks. Hash marks.
Yeah,
Right.
I got you.
Deer ground, hash marks. Right. Deer steaks, hash marks. Right, whatever. And each time
Roast,
you eat
back
something out
strap.
of there, wipe it off. And then you always know what's in there. There's not something that disappears that you're like, I don't know, like, oh crap, I found deer meat that's 5 years old. You won't have that happen because you'll look at the top and you'll see what's in there.
Hey, so just before you go any further, just for everybody who watches this, dude, I never thought about that, but now I'm going to add my own arts and crafts, maker kind of concept. Dude, you could do that with a whole bunch of different ways. Like get some big, like graph paper, and then laminate over it. So you could do it with a Sharpie or a grease pencil. You don't have to necessarily destroy or damage the exterior of the lid. But you're absolutely right. That's a great organizational adaptation. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a good idea, sir.
Going back to COVID, like when COVID first happened. So 4 years ago, there was a time where everybody was freaking out and there was nobody knew if this was the beginning of the apocalypse, like genuinely, or if this is an overblown case of the sniffles. Nobody knew. Nobody knew.
Some of us did.
It was.
Some of us did.
In February, all we knew was there was this big virus, and we had videos of people tipping over like crazy in other countries, and we didn't know. And I'm saying this for the benefit of other people. I wasn't worried about it. I knew that like I might get laid off from work, whatever else. But I went to the store and you couldn't get macaroni and cheese. Like they were out of everything. And people were freaking out because they couldn't get anything. And people were also freaking out because they couldn't get milk and things like that. Or they could get milk this week, but next week it wasn't there. And nobody had chest freezers. I went on a hunting trip and came back, and I had more game meat than I had room for in the current freezer I had. So I had to buy a second one, and I couldn't find a chest freezer because people were freaking out and buying chest freezers. And it occurred to me, I asked around, and the thought I had was confirmed. People don't have freezers. Most people don't have freezers. Like you and me are not normal. Most people don't have freezers. And so people went out and bought freezers because they thought, oh my gosh, I can preserve things. And there's so many things that we don't think about preserving. Bread goes on sale. You can, if it's 50 cents a loaf because it's about to go bad, newsflash. Most people don't know. You can freeze bread and thaw it out, and it's just like fresh. You just throw the loaf in the freezer, and it's good. A month later, it's still good. Same with milk. You can throw an entire jug of milk in the freezer. But at the end of the day, what a freezer buys you is it buys you insulation from the outside world's consequences. If something happens, you're insulated because you have meat, you have cheese, you have bread, you have eggs, whatever else is in that freezer, and it's in suspended animation on some level. It is immune to the effects of aging for several years. And you get those things out, you thaw them, and you have them. I think that's something. You buy a house, you should buy a freezer. If you don't have a freezer, you should get one because I think everybody should have one. That's not me being a prepper. I'm not a prepper. I'm just some dumb hillbilly who likes eating venison. You should have a freezer. And if you don't have one, and if you don't hunt, man, go on Craigslist sometime. There are people who have pigs or cows or whatever, and they'll even thump them in the head for you when you go to pick them up. You can look up a YouTube video on how to butcher, and you can do it yourself. You'll learn a ton about butchering. It's not hard. You don't need special stuff, but you can put 300 pounds of pork for $150 in your freezer, and you can't do that at Kroger, even when it's on sale. You can do a ton. Even during things like COVID, you can do things like that. You need a place to put it, buy a freezer. They're not expensive. That's my parting.
Hey, I'm willing to I'm just going to go on the record here publicly. This will be, documented for history to, back it up. I'm willing to trade you any piece of gear that I make to have you on in the future. So Jeremy doesn't know this. We're running this thing that we're going to do Liberty Week, a different week and a different week. And we're going to try the cycle for a while to try to play to the algorithm. But I think during Liberty Week, because this to me is liberty, you've got to be free from these constraints. You've got to learn how to do this stuff. And Evan, like your background and your experience and the knowledge I think that you have and what you could share with people is astounding. And everything you just said, I absolutely love. And then to that point, without drawing this out any further, but just, I already know, what that's going to be, right? You already know what I'm doing. Yeah. So
water, glass, and eggs.
Dude, you've got to get up. So we've got to have this as somehow to figure out a way to bring this into Liberty Week, because everything you just said is absolutely right. And honestly, it's fun and it's rewarding, on a spiritual level, I think anyway, like, hey, I did that, I just butchered my own pig or my own deer or whatever the case is. And I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Yeah. People need to do that. So if you're willing to come back on in the future, I think that's got to be, we've got to find a way to to make that kind of a semi-regular conversation, just sharing a skill. So back into the social media thing, this is my final comment. I did like 3 cooking videos. I even made a little, where is it? Over there. I even made a little like bib for barbecuing and cooking. I use it sometimes in the shop, if I don't want, stuff coming all over me. But I even made this thinking, well, maybe I'll sell this. But you know what? I hate to say this, and maybe I'm black pilled in this, Paul, you tell me, but like, I'm not 100% sure that a lot of people really are down with this stuff, Evan. I think so many people have like, yeah, if I can't get it in the grocery store or whatever, I don't give a shit. Like, in other words, the things you just said seem like to be like some kind of weird effort that somebody has put forward. Whereas I'm looking at it's like, no, that's the beauty. That's the awesomeness is doing like glassing and, and canning your own foods and, doing your own shit, like, dude, when I barbecue and I freezer, I vacuum seal. I got like 6 meals after I do one barbecue. Like if all 3 of us were having steaks, I ain't just doing steaks. I'm doing a whole bunch of other things so I can vacuum seal and put it in my freezer. So at a minute's notice, I've got a good homemade, real protein meal that I barbecued. That's way better than some deep fried fat, whatever thing. I don't know if that made sense. But you just kind of got me going right there, sir. I'm not going to lie. I like it.
Count me in, man. You want to have me back? I'll happy to be back.
Wow, no, and I'm willing to trade you some gear. So Paul can speak to this. Look, this is not the podcast. We're not Joe Rogan. I can't say, and tonight's guest was flown out on Lufthansa, first class, I got nothing to offer like that, but I do make gear and I know you like gear and I know you make good gear. So if you see something that you like, I'll hook you up, but you got to come back on. And if maybe you don't want my gear, but if you are willing to come back on and share your experiences, and then again, and we should maybe have that a little bit more focused. Tonight we were going to do Liberty, and I think it is still Liberty, but we spent, the vast majority of tonight talking about hunting and the rules and regulations and what people should be doing and things like that.
Liberty. That's Liberty.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so too. And honestly, Evan and and Paul, and thank you so much. You didn't get a lot of chance to talk, but Evan and Paul, you guys are probably way more closely related or similar than I am to any of you guys. You guys are doing so much of you guys are at the point where I wish what I wanted to do 5 or 6 years ago, and then life took a different turn, and now I'm still here. You guys are moving that ball forward. That Liberty ball forward way. And that's awesome. And honestly, my hat is off to both of you guys. I mean, and I hope anybody who's watching, listening tonight, we're having fun. And it was kind of, again, it was a shit show and it got off the rails, but the comments you guys have made, the things that you guys have said, it's exactly what Liberty stands for. And I personally think that this is going back into social media. This is what they're trying to destroy. They don't want you, Evan. They don't want you, or that cooking guy you talking about. They don't want people to learn how to cook for themselves. No, get into your 15-minute city and get your bugs from the grocery store for, seriously. Hey, somebody just joined us and I just saw a little comment I got to share with everybody and then we're going to wrap it up. Look at that. Look at that. Mark is awesome. Yeah. Do you guys see that?
Who'd you pay? Who'd you
This
pay
is,
to
the,
put
this
that?
is the smartest. This is the smartest person in the podcast right now. This guy right here, the smartest person in the podcast right here.
Yeah.
All right, guys. It's been a day. I so appreciate you, Evan, for coming in. Paul, I always appreciate you. You already know that. Matter of fact, you and I will probably talk on the phone once this is done. But Evan, I'm serious, dude. I'd never seen you in person. We had talked a few times before. I follow you on social media. I got that knife from you. Liam says thank you. Liam, I'll show it one more time. But my comment to you is like, there's no thanks necessary, sir. No thanks necessary.
Hey, Liam.
That's a great name, Liam. I mean, that's a great name right there. But no, seriously. But Evan, I can't tell you how much fun this has been for me this week, having you on Tuesday and having you on again. I so appreciate it. And I am not messing around at all. You've got to come back and we've got to have conversations about hunting. People need to, if you're willing to do it, share your knowledge with people. And I will throw free gear at you and to bribe you to come back on. I can't throw booze at you. I can throw gear at you. Well, Paul's like, hey man, come on.
What?
See,
No,
what?
I'm fine with that. Mark's good to us. Mark's good to us.
I'm trying to be. I wish I could fly you guys out here. We can all be around a table together, having a drink and smoking a cigar around a campfire and having this. That would be, honestly, if I could do it, that's how this podcast would be.
Man, that would be legit.
A bunch of us, and we'd all be having a conversation. That would be, in my perfect world, that would be awesome right there. But all right, guys, we're at almost 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I could keep going for another 2 hours. I just love this conversation. You guys are awesome. How about I shut the F up? Let's go to Paul. Final comments, and then to Evan. God dang it, stupid camera. Evan,
I've already said my final comment, so it's all.
You got nothing else to add? Okay, let's bring it to BCP.
Yeah, I would say it's great to meet Evan. I think I have a lot more comments that in a future podcast we can talk about, but we're absolutely like-minded. So it's good to have another like-minded person here, and I'm happy with that. So I'm done.
Hey,
with
seriously, Paul, your comments from your background and your perspective, will that apply for next week in the war room? Could you bring them in on board next week?
Yeah, I can do anything you need me to do. Yeah, that's good.
Really? Can you stand
flexible.
on your
No,
can you
don't
stand
get
on your
weird.
head? Okay.
Do not get weird.
All right. On that note. There it is. I just had to throw there. I love that. God, it's so sad how life just takes people away from us. And I'm just going to do, can I do it one more time? I don't know. Let's see here. Like, I'm going to try to do this full screen just for everybody. Oh, I'm screwing it up. There we go. Here we go. One more time, everybody. Dude, that was just a sad day losing that guy. I mean, seriously, the guy he played that role so well. But all right, everybody. Evan, thank you so very much, sir, for being here tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, I appreciate it no matter what. Even if you hated it, I appreciate it.
No,
BCP,
good time.
BCP, you came on, you were tired. You must have had a long day, but then you rallied. You kind of got up and started, doing a little. Yeah, exactly. So totally appreciate it. We didn't have Redbeard here. I don't know if that probably is why this went off the rails, to tell the truth. That's a weird thing to say. We went off the rails because Redbeard wasn't here. I think he's the one who always takes us off the rails. Actually, it's me. It's me.
It's you, Mark. It absolutely is you.
I'm going to admit it 100%. But to everybody watching and listening, this final comment, this did go a little off the rails tonight, but it was, I'm not going to lie. It was fun and it was informative. I learned so much just talking to Evan tonight and Paul tonight. Jeremy always has these little nuggets and gems that he gives you, when you're talking to him. So I hope you enjoy this. I know it's a little bit long. Take it in, biteable, digestible chunks, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're trying to do the best that we can. And we're just we're just people just like you. So, but we're taking the time to get out there and try to talk about this stuff. And we're bringing great people on. Evan is just another example of that. I mean, Evan, like, you're just a great guest. I mean, I can't just say thank you enough. And I mean that seriously. So thanks to everybody who watched tonight's podcast. I hope you have a great weekend. And this was the end of Freedom Week. Next week is the War Room. Jeremy will explain that on Tuesday of next week. And then we'll just keep on going, and we'll just keep doing the best we can. And until then, as always, I mean, just everybody just do the best you can. You are the resistance. I mean, more than ever, you've got to look inside yourself and say, no, I'm not going to put up with this bullshit. I'm not going to stand, and I'm not going to be quiet, and I'm not going to just let somebody push my kid around or do this to children or whatever your issue is. You are the resistance. And if we don't stand up and if we don't speak out against this, well, then who are we going to look to and who are we going to blame when everything falls apart? You got no one to blame but yourself. So on that note, thank you very much for watching tonight and listening. And we will see everybody next Tuesday. All right, everybody, be good.